Today's episode is sponsored by our friends at Face It League. Don't miss your chance to register for Season 4 of Face It League right now and use our link below to get 20% off your first subscription.
I think it's going to probably be even tougher to beat the Korean teams than last year, right? Because even, Someone and Merit have now returned to Korea, and there's just more money in Korea in general now compared to last year. So I feel like it's going to be quite tough. I think we still have it over EU, where I think EU has more teams, but I don't necessarily think they're better teams.
Maybe in hindsight, especially with hindsight, we should have just given NRG the slot from day one, and then they would have accepted it, and then we'd have free. But I think once the C9, C9 the spot, it was like, I feel like any
This
other
was
option,
the best solution.
yeah, because I think Zeta deserve a spot. Like they are a big org, they have an insane team. Like I think any way that we can milk the Japanese audience is probably like objectively like a good thing.
I wouldn't be shocked if they just added LGD or whoever it would be as a partner team like partway through the year.
Our problem kind of going into these internationals was we're playing dive against all the Western teams, but we know we can't win dive against the Korean teams because they have S tier on us, right? You're not going to win against Chio, Fielder backline, or Chorong Shu. So then maybe your only way to win is on Rush or on Brawl comps, because historically, right, at the World Cup, Korea's been like bad at that, and just in general, Korea's been worse at Brawl comps. So if you're gonna pick one comp architect to beat the Koreans on, it's that. But I feel like as the West right now, people are just building rosters to beat the rest of the West, and then we'll see against Korea,
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 32 of Uncoachable. 2 episodes in 2 weeks. We're so back. OWCS is back. We had the qualifiers last weekend. Korea is starting next weekend. Unbelievable levels of backness all around. Someone else who is back is Casores. He's back on Uncoachable, probably more importantly, but to a lesser degree, he's also back in North American Overwatch on Team Liquid. Welcome, Cass.
Thank you. Glad to be back. Am I the first free timer on this show?
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Feels like we could easily have had Danny 3 times and everyone just forgot because nobody cares about Danny. So we
Danny's been on 8
to
times.
consult a stats guy to confirm this. But yeah.
And I thought, what better place to start than exactly there, Cass, because you've been announced, Team Liquid, new roster, looking strong in North America. So could you maybe start just by telling us how did it all come together? How do you get this squad together?
Yeah, so we started out like pretty early, right after the tournament ended. I started talking with Toronto, of course, and seeing if they're interested. And they basically said like, "Oh, we're not sure yet. We're gonna see what they have to offer and wait." So at that point, we're all free agents. And I start talking to a couple teams. I think at the start, I start talking to like 9 teams or something like that. Like there were so many teams interested in both EU and NA, and after a while of processing and all these orgs are talking with Blizzard too, some like the offer, some don't. A couple orgs remain, and I felt that Team Liquid had the best offer. And then when we're looking at the roster, I wanted to keep, my Toronto core essentially. But if you're a Korean player now and you see T1 come in and you see the stakes get up and you see more money go around, and you see Korea just won all of last year, if you're a Korean player, you probably want to play in Korea. So Ham and Merit both decided, hey, we just want to play in Korea. Like they even said it before the final tournament, which all the best to them, right? They're the best players in the world. They should be on the best teams, and it's hard to do so in EU and NA right now. So from there, I'm basically talking to my Western core with Sugar Free and Vega and RuPaul, and we're looking to add to that. And pretty early on, it shows that Sugar Free and the rest of the team and me, we kind of want different things in this next year. So Sugar Free goes off and does his own thing with Hunter. And then we basically look at, who's really hungry, who wants to play, who's the best in NA. And then different from last year I signed the Koreans first and I added American players to that. This year was actually the opposite, where I'm signing my American players and then I'm trying to add to that. So Tree was a free agent. Infected was a free agent. I really wanted to work with Vega and RuPaul again. So it all just came together, and I already thought if I can't get someone for tank for this next year with hero bans, I want to get Infected. So that was kind of my goal. I think he is so flexible, and I think he's like the Western someone. He was really like up there for me. And then I think Tree is just, along with Sugar Free, I think Tree and Sugar Free are the best two players in NA. So I really wanted to work with Tree as well. He's so young and he's such a grinder that I'm really happy with what we ended up. And then we ended up getting Knife. I talked to a lot of Flex DPS. And it seems like this year, actually EU might have had a leg up in money because all these Saudi orgs are offering, the Korean players that are willing to import like a really good amount of money. Opposite from last year where I was the one offering the Korean players the most money and I got first pick. This time it's kind of the opposite. But I'm really, really happy we ended up with Knife. I feel like he's been gelling really well with the team. If anybody's been watching Trees or Infected streams, he's actually integrating himself really well. And his English, also when I talked to him, was surprisingly good. And he's like really become integrated with the team already, even though he's not in America yet.
Yeah, I mean, how many Flex DPS players did you actually have to talk to before you wound up settling on Knife? Because I remember with the off-season rumors that were going around, I mean, I feel like I can think of like at least 4 people that you were in talks with where it was like, you're asking these people and again and again and again, they've got like a different vision for where they want to go, often because there's more money in the other region or because they don't want to leave Korea for, obvious reasons, something to do with winning. But yeah, how many did you actually have to get through?
Dude, when you're scouting for a role and you don't already have like somebody exact you're talking to, you just make a tier list, Like these are my S tier picks, these are my A tier picks, these are my B tier picks. And in general, I just start talking with every S tier and every A tier first, so I don't like tunnel vision on one player. So I was talking to some players and maybe they weren't my first pick already, but they were like, oh, if I can't get the rest or if I feel like after talking to them, I feel really good about them, I want to go with them, which actually kind of ended up happening with Knife because I was like very much in doubt between like Knife, Viper, Zest, and some other players too. And from talking to Knife, I could clearly tell like, oh, these guys would be a better cultural fit in my team than the rest, So I actually talked to 6 or 7 players, but I think you should just do that in order to not tunnel vision on this 2 or 3, you got to keep the options open.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're talking to Korean players in particular, if you start out, sending them a couple of texts on Discord, you get a really good indication as to whether or not they're going to be a good cultural fit when the messages come back and you can see whether they're using Papago or broken English. If somebody's giving it their all and replying to you in broken English, it's like, all right, we've got a good chance here. But if you're getting this block of like ridiculous, obvious Papago, it's like, this is not going to work out. I got a bad feeling about this one just quietly. But, maybe Knife, given he's, never been on like a mixed team properly. I'm just not counting Vegas Eternal with Rack Attack listening to people in Korean talk, that's not happening. Like, given he's never been on a mixed roster, maybe he still had to lean into the Papago a little bit. But yeah, I think it can be like really easy to tell early on whether someone is going to be at least capable of giving it a go.
If Sugar Free would have joined, would you have just done 5NA? Would you have gone for it?
I'm not sure if I would have done 5NA, but I would have done like a 5NA core, right? My plan was like initially to just start out with 5NA core and then look for Koreans that like maybe a Korean off tank or a Korean 30 DPS like that. But I think just in NA, there is a lot of talent that's up and coming. So I wasn't necessarily going into this offseason like I have to pick up Korean. I was like, if I get a really, really good Korean, like a top 3 Korean, yeah, I can build my roster around that. But this offseason especially, all the Crazy Raccoon and all the Falcons and all the Zeta players were already under contract. So the only like top Koreans that are free agents in my head are someone at Merit.
Which maybe still remains to be true.
I got my doubts there. I feel like there's something going on there.
That's
just
fishy business.
Yeah, there's a bit of something fishy, but I'm not sure how in depth we would want to discuss that in particular. Just a couple of dudes taking a break for a stage. Just a couple of dudes taking a break for a stage.
Then I have to ask then, okay, you said that Sugar Free was not aligned, and Max could offer him something that you couldn't. So
We've got
what
both
is it
sides of
that
the coin here.
what is it that Max can offer that Team Liquid wasn't offering?
You want to give that a go, Max?
No, I thought this is a question to you. I mean, this is.
I
It's
want to hear
open for
both
you.
answers. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer. I'll answer second.
You know, I think Sugar Free is an incredibly talented player. I love working with him, and we still have a very good working relationship. I think he just wanted to have a lot of fun this year and just, play with friends, shoot the shit. And I really wanted to put in more effort and time this year, and VOD review more than we did last year, and just go for longer boot camps, maybe even do free blocks, and that. I think Lenny does best in an environment where he can just have fun with friends and just go into match day without too much prep. And I feel like he's going to do really well in SSG with that.
Yeah, I think I don't have to add too much more from what Casores said. Lenny's someone that wants like a more casual environment where he can enjoy himself and he can take the piss. And maybe that's not the environment that Casores wants to foster throughout the year. And I think at this point, the style which I enjoy has been well documented and well publicized.
Taking the piss style.
So there was only one man for Lenny to call when he decided what style he wanted to adopt this year. So that's fair enough.
How well do you think this roster can do now? Because obviously last year you were probably the Western team that had the most international success against the Koreans, give or take a crazy raccoon every single time. But compared to last year, how good is this team compared to last year's Toronto?
I feel like this team is a real outside shot. I feel like last year we really picked up a championship core, minus 2 Koreans. And, this year I think it's going to be more of a challenge where we're not just guaranteed number 1 in NA. We're going to have to fight more for it. I still think we're the favorite. But I think in international competition, I think it's going to probably be even tougher to beat the Korean teams than last year, right? Because even, someone and Merit have now returned to Korea, and there's just more money in Korea in general now compared to last year. So I feel like it's going to be quite tough. I think we still have it over EU, where I think EU has more teams, but I don't necessarily think they're better teams. So we'll probably talk about that. But I think in NA, the 2 top teams have kind of got all the talent, where in EU, I think they're spread amongst 5 teams, where it's kind of like the same issue as last year, where you just have really, really good parts of a roster, but you have to fill them up with either imports or you just have weak holes.
I mean, you said that you think in NA the top 2 have all of the talent. I don't know if that's entirely true at all, to be honest. Because I mean, even last year, stage 3, stage 4, Nightmare, NRG, and even you guys. I mean, obviously you would always win your grand finals, but you guys were dogfighting heaps towards the end of the year, not just with NRG, but also with Nightmare, right? I feel like NA was very much like a 3-horse race rather than a 2. And, maybe it's a little bit different now with, someone Merit being gone, some key pieces that made you guys so dominant have changed hands. So maybe one team has to get weaker as a result. But I think there's been so much up and coming talent in North America that's continually improved. I think that NA is more of a 3-horse race than a 2-horse.
Oh yeah, I meant to say I think NA, the 2 top teams just had the pick of everybody, I don't think
right, yeah.
Nightmare is bad, but I mean
you could do whatever you wanted roster wise for sure.
Yeah.
Because there was 0. Yeah.
Yeah, because I meant EU 5 teams were all bidding on players, and it was kind of bidding war going on. In NA, there was a bidding war until the 3rd team dropped, and then it was
and then
now the top 2 teams
0 negotiating power.
Now the top 2 teams just have all the power, but I do think Nightmare is really good, right?
Yeah, this Nightmare team was it felt that team was always going to exist in some form, just from the players coming together and playing, but then Nightmare swoops in, I guess, last minute to try and replace the 3rd partner org to sponsor these guys. So the roster seems pretty good. I'd say it's probably still feels weaker than the other 2. I feel like in the same way, maybe Tank is always the big problem in North America if you don't have Infected. So I feel like it's hard for Clear and Cuthbert to fill that hole. But the rest of the roster, Zero, Vision, UV, Admiral, actually feels really competitive for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like that same core, which, for the most part, did really well in North America all throughout, especially the second half of the year. It's got like NRG and Nightmare guys that performed well. I think someone like Kuffer, in defense of Australians, I mean, I think Kuffer's like relatively underrated. People look at Kuffer and be like, cancer random, but I think he's actually like, quite good, to be honest. He like never was able to get into like a good team once he moved to North America, but he had like pretty respectable results in North America on ridiculous ping. And then he came to NA and just couldn't get on a team because of the import rules. But this year it's changed, now he can actually be on a decent team. I wouldn't say that he's, at the same level of infected in terms of like flexibility and talent, but I think he's a little bit underrated. And then Lethal as well, he was sort of just like dicking around, not taking it seriously. But I feel like he's always been a good player, especially like in this last year. He would just randomly get subbed in because he was like basically only playing as a sub. He would just randomly get subbed in and diff everyone for a match or two and then disappear into the wind again. So I think that there's like heaps of talent on that Nightmare roster. It'd be like a very competitive year.
That's how it works this year, right? So like Kuffer, Lethal, Admiral don't count as imports. Like as far as the Blizzard are aware, this is like a fully NA team with, well, in theory, room to import. They probably won't because they're in college in America.
Yeah, that's correct. They changed the ruling now, where if they can prove that they're studying in America or provide some sort of documentation, probably to do with the type of visas that they're on, then they can be counted as residents. So that's a zero import team as far as Blizzard is concerned.
It's got to be a timer on that though, right? Because I mean, if I'm, Shock or whatever team last year,
partner with Winthrop and get
you just partner with an org. You just put those Korean players in college, and you get 5 Koreans, and you're like, I'm set, mate.
To be honest, I think if they did that, then Blizzard would just revoke the ruling instantly. Like I think if anyone tried to manipulate the rule in that way, Blizzard would just roll the rule back and fuck over the ISU guys because they're not gonna have 6 Koreans living in America pretending to be students for the sake of winning the tournament. But that would be gold.
Falcons go to college.
Yeah, I mean we've still got Sir Majed pretending to be a competitor in Korea, so stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I mean there's an easy fix to that, right? Just have them like have to be in college for at least 1 year before that counts. But I feel like this is like a good rule. It's
second,
a good rule.
Maybe even third, yeah.
Yeah, because Admiral's been in NA for so long now too. That he's basically American now, and he's
him and Lethal both really, right? Like
yeah.
They're the anti-Landons,
And now it's time for our sponsored segment. We are, of course, sponsored by our good friends at Faceit League, and they are sponsoring us because it is time to sign up to the Faceit League. We saw all the open qualifiers for OWCS last weekend, and now coming up this week are all the qualifiers for the Faceit Masters, Faceit Expert, Faceit Advanced. So there's all these ways to qualify to get yourself in at the right tier for the upcoming Faceit League season.
Yeah, I think it actually has potential to be really fun. I think the qualifiers themselves were so hotly contested. And I think what was really helpful was any format where the stakes get really high because there's only 1 or 2 slots. I think that's kind of what makes it like it ups the stakes a lot. And I think that the difference between qualifying for OWCS and not is actually as significant as anything, I think for a lot of these teams that we saw miss out, I think this Faceit League is going to be really, really, really exciting for them. And when we do get into the playoffs and the promotion relegation, I think for sure that's going to be like some of the most high stakes Overwatch that we're going to get.
Yeah, I think now if you sign up, you wind up in the Masters division, you're going to be competing against all of these teams that we saw just miss out by a sliver in the OWCS qualifiers. You yourself are going to get a chance to qualify down the line into the OWCS promotions and, potentially into the tournament itself. So I feel like, there's a very real chance to get some serious broadcast time for yourself.
I think as well, you look at those 2 final days when we had the sort of lower bracket conclude with those final qualification spots in the open qualifiers, and it was life or death game, life or death game, life or death game. When we get to that in the promotion relegation games at the end of Faceit League season, it's going to be exactly that again. It's going to be incredibly high stakes, a huge moment. And even in those open qualifiers, we saw a lot of teams that maybe people wouldn't have predicted to qualify. Like Amplify, probably the big example of that over in North America. Like a huge boon for all of their players, a great opportunity to play in OWCS, and you can only do that through the Faceit League system.
How do I sign up?
Oh, well, the best way to sign up, Chris, is to go, click on this link down below. It's our
Hello.
affiliate link, so you get 20% off the subscription. You get a great chance to get that discount, get your team signed up. You can all use the code, unlimited uses, all of this. Go join, make sure you're signed up. All of the qualification tournaments for Master, Expert, and Advanced are all coming up. We'll get those on screen for you now. So go sign up, go qualify, and then you could be playing against these teams. Now, we're literally inches away from qualifying into OWCS, and you can even get your own shot to qualify there. If you want to improve as a player, if you want to improve as a team, this really is the place to be. This is the path to pro, this is the path to OWCS, and there's no better way to do it.
When's the sign-up deadline, Xavier?
Well, the sign-up deadline. So it's slightly different dates for all of the Master, Expert, Advanced. Master's going to be first. That tournament starts on the 25th, 26th. So you got to get in before that. Expert will be the 27th, and Advanced will be the 28th. So we'll get that entire tiered system filled out over the course of the next week or so. So don't waste any time. Get your team together. If you're looking for a team, you can do this on the Faceit website yourself. Otherwise, there's also options if you go to my Discord or something as well. There's people looking for Faceit teams on there. Faceit Discord as well. Loads of great options to find yourself teams, players of similar skills, whether that is challenging to get into OWCS or just looking for players to play an Expert or Advanced around more of your own level. So there's never been a better time to sign up. And again, as always, the best way to support us on the podcast, the best way to support Overwatch, the best way to support the Tier 2 scene is to play and participate in it and watch along. So be sure to sign up. Be sure to use our code. It's the best way to sign up. Get yourself that discount. Thank you very much again to Faceit. And we'll see you in the Faceit League.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. And then the third American team to talk about that announced, of course, is SSG. Hunter's got himself, he's back in the scene after the dizzying heights of Maryville last season. He's got himself onto a top team. So go on, Max, talk us through how do you get back in?
So when I was in Stockholm, because I was in Stockholm just taking the piss, really. I had a streamer deal with Nightmare, and when I negotiated that they'd take me to Stockholm because I wanted to go on a holiday and see my friends. So they took me to Stockholm. And when I was there, just taking the piss, doing nothing of any import, Tree came up to me and he said, "I really want you to coach me next year. Like, can you come back? And I really want you to coach me." So I was like, okay, sure. And I posted, looking for a team or whatever, so that it was clear that, I was serious about it and that I could talk to orgs and whatnot. And then I talked to Tree about it a bit, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to go join the Liquid Core." So it's like, all right, cheers. Appreciate that, mate. That's cool. So like, yeah, I'm back in the game, mate. Like, I'll quit the streaming because you asked me. Like, I quite like Tree, so I'll get back in the game. And then Tree's instantly joined the Liquid Core. So I was like, all right, cheers. Appreciate that. And the Liquid Core was fully tied to Casores and Daniel, the coaching superstars that they are. So it is what it is. But, Liquid, they had this issue of Lenny, of Sugar Free, not wanting to be on the team because, he wanted a bit of a different environment. So Sugar Free came to me and he said, "Hey, gonna put together some sort of a team here with me and Seeker and a few others. Do you want to coach it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And at the time, I was still involved with Nightmare. And Nightmare was, maybe in the running to be a partner team, maybe looking to partner up with Space Station in some sort of SSGX Nightmare partnership thing. So I had some talks with Space Station as a result of that, this link between Nightmare and Space Station. And now that eventually just evolved into, they're not going to partner with Nightmare, but I'm coaching this roster. I've been talking to Space Station. We're going to sign this roster to Space Station. It all just sort of just happened in that way. And as for how did the roster come about, I mean, I feel like, you can get a decent indication. You look at this core where you've got Seeker, Sugar Free, CJ, and, you heard what Lenny was looking for this year in terms of a team where, the environment is good, people are friends, you can shoot the shit, that sort of thing. And you look at the players on that team and it's like, okay, everyone here is a friend. And then you look at the Koreans that we imported, and this is a little bit more complicated for sure. Because for tank, that was an extremely competitive role this year in terms of getting a Korean tank player. Lots of people had eyes on Dongak in particular in the offseason. Like every team and their mum wanted to get their hands on Dongak as the tank because I feel like he proved this year, post Atlanta, he proved that he's not just a Winston ball player. He's actually extremely flexible and extremely talented. I think Dongak was number one in a lot of people's minds after someone as a potential pickup. And lots of teams were willing to throw good money at him to actually pick him up. But as we've also touched on a little bit earlier here, Korean players want to play in Korea. And apparently Dongak wanted to play in Korea so badly that he would like to play with Opener and Skewed as his supports. So I don't think we'll be seeing Dongak at any lands this year, but respect to him for staying in Korea. He also doesn't speak a whole lot of English because even though he was on a mixed roster, it was a fake mixed roster. It was just another 5 Korean starters. It was the equivalent of saying that Falcons can speak Arabic because Sermajet is on the roster. So yeah, he was another person where if you would DM them, you could definitely get the vibe that they are not super fluent in the English, and it's going to be challenging. There was another wide swing player. We had Heesung, where Heesung was going to be coming out of contract with Zeta. I think we found out that he was going to be getting cut, and he was considered for a while, but his English was even worse than Dongak's. Like a real gamble on someone like that, where even if you can see that they've got a lot of talent and a lot of potential, get a solo Korean tank on ping that doesn't speak the language seems like a bit much, a bit of a stretch. So decided the next option on the list is Kellen. And Kellen is someone that, he's performed fairly well last year, long history in Overwatch League before that, where he's showcased like reasonable flexibility across the board. He solo tanked on Nixel for a year. So also has really good English because like multiple years of mixed roster experience. So as soon as we thought Dongak and Heesung aren't worth it for the English, we were all just like, all right, let's offer Kellen today, right now, and just get him on the contract straight away. Because we know that he's talking to a bunch of different teams. He's talking to T1. He's talking to people in Europe. And we give him more time to think about it. He's just going to join someone else. So let's just lock down Kellen. As soon as we lock down Kellen, we lock down Blissy. I think Bliss is I don't know if a no-brainer is the right way to put it, but I mean, he was playing in Saudi. He was playing on a mixed roster. He's demonstrably good at the main support heroes. He can speak English. It's an obvious pick. You basically in North America, your options were like, you pick up someone like Bliss or you pick up someone like Admiral. And Bliss is, young, going to grind more upside in the long term, I'd say. Plus he's Korean. It's good to have 2 Koreans rather than 1, I'd suppose, just so that, your 1 Korean doesn't feel absolutely miserable all by their lonesome. Although, Casores is perfectly integrated knife in his preseason, so I can only imagine that will be perfect all year round.
I think the difference is that we're gonna get him to NA, and we're gonna mostly have a team house going.
When you're all living together, it'll be different. There'll just be like some potential stresses when there's nobody for him to talk to in his mother tongue, and he's all alone on the other side of the world.
To my credit, I speak decent Korean at this
point.
point.
True. Actually, you're basically Korean at this point, and you're going to be in the house taking care of the kids. So you got that.
And young,
and that's the whole SSG roster.
Do you see yourself as the second best team in America, or do you think it's like pretty 50-50 for the top dog spot? If we're being honest, as we always are in this Uncoachable podcast.
I think we're the second best team for sure. I think it'll be like competitive in certain metas, but I think Kellen is a better tank than the other players on those rosters. I think Bliss is a better main support than Admiral. I would certainly hope so, right? And I think we will DPS diff these teams as well. Like Sugar Free is the best DPS in North America, or tied with Tree. So I think we've got people in enough roles where they're the best in that role. And then everyone else, I mean, they're not chumps, right? I don't think that anyone is trying to argue a case that CJ is a better flex support than RuPaul, but I think there's a very strong case that CJ is the flex support in North America that has the highest upside long term because he's like the least developed talent. He's someone that has been on like Kappa teams and coachless teams for the entire duration of his career. And he's had a significantly shorter career than Ultraviolet or RuPaul both. So I think I look at a player like CJ and I think, even though he's got probably the most to prove out of anyone on our team in terms of his, his career thus far, he's also probably the earliest into his career of everyone. So I think there's the most scope for growth on a player like him. So, we've had a couple of online scrims where we've been touched, but I'd say that, I got to rank us as, a top 2 team in North America because the talent doesn't lie.
So I was wondering about that because if I was building the roster, I would have went with Ultraviolet over CJ. Is that like your gamble? Do you think that Ultraviolet's had enough years on teams where you think maybe CJ is better now because he had such a good performance on Juno and he learned the character so quickly?
I think they're just close right now. I think they're just closer than people give credit. And I'd say that if one person has more scope for growth in the long term, it'd be CJ over UV. because UV's been doing it for so long. UV, I mean, it's not to shit on him by any means, because he's a very developed player, and he's obviously been like, top of the roll in North America for a very long time. I think that's probably like the biggest question that people have been asking about the roster construction, like, throughout, is like, why isn't Ultraviolet on the team over CJ? But I think people are like wildly unfair to CJ in that, because it's like CJ had really good results in North America all throughout the year. He's very clearly shown his trajectory of improvement, but nobody wants to bring him into the conversation of consideration talent-wise, even though he's actually proven it, Like Nightmare was good at Winston Anna Brig. He picks up Juno and is really, really good at it. He was really good at Kiriko on release, He's been good at all the new DLC heroes. He was good at Ana in Winston Anna Brig. At what point does he start getting credit for his ability?
I think as well, because the rest of your roster is relatively safe. Maybe safe's not the right word, but like established talent, right? Like no one's worried that Sugar Free and Seeker are going to be good. No one's worried. You know what you're going to get with Kellen, you know what you're going to get with Bliss. And then there's like an element of gamble here, right? But maybe if a roster was like more risks, like a Heesung or something, then all of a sudden there's like the more pieces you gamble with, the bigger scope for a variation in results you might get come end of year.
Yeah, for sure. I think, a part of it is that it's like Ultraviolet. He's a very established player. He's a popular player. People expect you to just go with the safe pick in every single role, like go with the most known player every single time. But, I'm Australian. I like to gamble a little bit. And this is a team that, has like a cultural component of everyone wants to be friends and get along really well. And, that works into this element as well. And I think that, CJ, he's a good player and he's got the most scope for growth out of the supports in North America. So I see no problem.
Do you never worry? Here's what I worry. I always worry that any team that's reliant on vibes never work with losing. Like there is like even if you're the best pals in the world, there is like an element of like success that's like mandatory to keep the vibes flowing. And then I guess the question would be, do you think, I guess maybe if you like feel like you're consistently like top 2, then maybe that's enough that like they'll just actually be fine. But is there a worry somewhere that if things do slightly go downhill, then like vibes alone won't help anything?
Well, I don't think the team is going to win on vibes, right? Like I think the team is going to win on talent at the end of the day. I don't think that a good environment wins matches. I think that talent wins matches. I don't think that I wouldn't pick a player that I think is demonstrably worse than the other guy and has no hope of being better than the other guy if just because they're a good bloke, right? Like I don't think you can select for that. I think you just lose. So I think that at the end of the day, you're always selecting for talent. And with people like Sugar Free, it's like, he might want a more lax, enjoyable environment at the end of the day. But it's like you look at these players and like they are all winners. Players that are winners, they don't want to lose. If they start to lose, they will work harder. They will put in the work to not be in that position. Even if somebody wants to take it easy from the onset and they want a little bit of a different approach, it's more about, the overall environment that you have in your practice. It's not so much like, we want to slack off and do nothing all year long. Because I think there's a huge difference there. And I mean, like, you say like, how far can a team go on vibes? You got to look at that 21 Atlanta roster. Like that's Overwatch League runner off on vibes alone. Well, there's obviously the talent was there, but it's a lot about the environment too. So I think I'm not concerned in that regard. No, any team, whether they're friends or not friends, they need to be talented to win, and no team is happy when they're losing.
Who wins on dive? SSG or TL? Who's the dive kings? Korean main tank versus the Rupal Vega backline. I think TL win.
Yeah.
I feel so much.
I think it depends on like the DPS, right? Like whether it's like hit scan tracer or double flex DPS.
If it's double flex DPS, then you're... Yeah.
If it's double flex DPS with the dive, then the team that has 2 flex DPS players will probably take it. I think if it's like hit scan tracer, then maybe the team that has a hit scan player will take it. But on the tank side of things, like I think Infected and Kellen are like fairly close on the Winston. Like Infected's definitely got like the best Winston in North America, and Kellen has, one of the better Winstons.
Korean Javis.
Yeah, exactly. He's Korean, right? So it's as simple as that. But yeah, I think it probably mostly comes down to what heroes matter in that matchup in particular.
I think if it's like Widow or Ashe, I think Seeker is like got a real leg up, But if it's Sojourn Tracer,
if it's Sojourn, yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got Trees, John Sojourn or something in North America, or so they say.
Do you think that NA is just objectively less competitive internationally now than it was last year? Like, have you effectively like, because there was obviously like a lot of like hype about NA from us towards the end. But do you think that, like, especially with like, because I feel like it's probably not unfair to say that TL is just Toronto, but like downgraded in a few positions, right? And if we still feel like TL are going to be the top dogs, does this mean that like the chances of NA like winning internationally is just like even less than it was last year?
I mean, maybe. Yeah, I mean, losing someone in a region is massive, right? But I think when it comes to Korea, I think it's just really tough right now, especially going into the season, to say that any team, even with the best imports, could win from the West. I think just in general, like NA showed last year that it wasn't just Toronto, right? Like NRG did insanely well. Nightmare did insanely well. They showed up on that Mauga comp, and NRG made their own comp work even. So I think NA is still really solid just due to the NA players too. I don't think it's just the imports. So internationally, and NA is still going to be really competitive, but I think it's going to be hard for any region to beat the Koreans.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to be like, playing for third place the whole year. So we have like ways that we're trying to catch up to the Koreans this year. We're going to do like really long boot camps. Actually, is one of the plans we had, especially before the China LAN and before Saudi. Is like we want to do like 2-week plus boot camps to try and catch up, because we really noticed, especially going into the Esport World Cup, that doing that boot camp in Korea, like it boosted us so much. Like I don't know if it's the air over there or the scrim quality, maybe both, but we're like really banking on that, where just like some of the League of Legends teams have done, just focusing on these longer boot camps, it's kind of the way to success forward for me.
I think a lot of teams are planning to go quite boot camp heavy this year. I think like last year it was really made like everyone did it for the Esports World Cup, but it feels like this year everyone is looking to invest loads in boot camps one way or another.
Yeah, I think every team could feel that. I don't know what's going on with Winter over there, but I think every team can really feel like they had to level up so much in like 2 weeks against the Korean teams. They just play at a faster pace. That the more time you have against that, the better it is. And I think for me, the like massive advantage that these Korean teams have is, one, they have infinite scrims to play against. Right? When you're in Korea, when we were boot camp for EWC, we had a different block against a team, and they were all competitive blocks, and we did 3 blocks a day, and you just leveled up so much. And then 2 is they have every match on LAN, so they're playing every match on LAN every single week, and then Westerners don't play LAN, and then finally they roll up to a LAN, and it's just a different environment, So I feel like those two are like such big advantages, and one we can kind of replicate with longer boot camps, and the other one is going to be inaccessible in God's hands, as they say.
I guess at least this year, maybe last year, like Vega was maybe the obvious person, maybe especially like Dallas comes in with like little to no LAN experience, especially on that scale. Whereas now it feels like everyone's at least got one big LAN under their belt, or a couple. And like Tree has I guess 2 actually. Didn't Tree played at Esports World Cup as well, right? With M80, am I remembering that right? And then Infected played Esports World Cup in Stockholm as well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's like an issue of like no LAN experience, right? Like I think even last year our team played the same in LAN on LAN as we did in scrims. It's just the continuous like system of it, right? Like doing it every week versus doing it once every 3 months. I feel like that's really different.
Did you say you guys are doing a team house?
So we're not doing like a set team house, but coming into this year, like Tree and Vega were really we want to just rent the place out. What are you guys looking to do? So then I did the maths, If I stay in the Netherlands, I pay more in taxes than I would going to live in America and paying rent. So the difference between rent and taxes is so big that it's better for me to pay rent in America than it is to stay in the Netherlands. So I was like, I'm on board. I did the maths. I did the whole 1 and 2.
That's
If
kind
I
of
just
insane,
stay
actually.
more than 183 days in America, I can pay taxes over there. So I save enough money where I could just pay the rent with that, which is it's crazy, right? But that's
Does
because
that mean you guys are gonna scrim EU? Because I heard this season, I think actually it looks like last season. Obviously, me and you, mate, we scrimmed a lot. Like that was like you were probably towards the end, like our biggest scrim partner. Like Ents in Toronto was basically every day. I think like especially at least the original plan from this idiot on the phone over here. Like their Koreans were going to be in Korea for most of the season, which makes EU scrims impossible. Is that the same for you guys, or are you going to potentially do EU scrims too?
No, we're thinking about doing EU scrim. If we feel like there's not enough competition in NA to do like 2 blocks a day with good teams, then we're gonna look to do EU scrims again, just like we did last year, right? We would scrim 1 EU block, and then we would do either NRG or Nightmare for our second block almost every single day, and that worked really well. So
you need to get up early, mate. Early bird.
Well, you guys are doing like really early scrims now, so you'd have to change that a little bit, but
No,
I'm sure we can figure out a way. EU team's already messaging me, are you guys scrimming again? So if it's not with you guys, then it's with other teams.
If you're in a team house, Cass, you can make sure everyone's awake, so you can do the early scrims. Just go around, go door to door, bang some pans.
We used to do 9 a.m. scrims back in the day in Overwatch League, didn't we? Or was it 10 a.m. we used to start on? I think it was 9 VOD, 10.
No, it was it? Maybe it was
9
VOD,
10
scrim, first block. Yeah.
Yep.
You can do it, mate. You got that idea.
We were doing 10 a.m. on Shock too. I think they'd want to start at like 11 or 12. Right? I think.
Yeah.
And that's what I would.
But that would probably work.
Like
if EU does a triple block, then your early block would be our third block. We could probably mix and match that.
Yeah, because it's
but I'm
not
quite
so
excited
much
about the prospect of finishing the day at 5 p.m.
It's not so much about like waking up early. It's about what are the other NA teams doing, right?
Yeah.
If they're all doing 6 to 8, 8 to 10, then I can't do a 12 to 2 because then there's such a big disconnect between our first block and our second block. So, I think we'd have to like revamp it, but I think that's really possible. I think a lot of NA players like starting early too, so they can score it or stream later.
I feel like the second players get a little bit older and more mature, the more the early lifestyle just appeals to them, because it's just like so many benefits. Originally everyone's like, I just don't want to wake up. That was like the only logic behind late scrims was I just don't want to wake up. But now it's like, well, like the ranked time in the evening is objectively better. It's better for streaming. It's better for social life. From was starting scrims at 5 p.m. Especially if you wake up at like 9 a.m. or 8 or whatever, like most people do, and it's actually like that 8 hours in the day before work starts is kind of annoying. So I feel like the early bird is getting the worm this year.
The early bird's getting the worm. I mean, if we could do 12 to 4, I would want to, but we'd have to be in an A first for that. I think as long as they're remote, we're just gonna look to see what the other NA teams are doing because we can't scrim at you anyway. But once we can scrim at you, that's when we're thinking of doing like maybe earlier scrims.
Is that a worry for you, Max, then? If Team Liquid are going to be able to scrim internationally, essentially, because they're going to be outfitting the team house, and then obviously Nightmare are all going to be in America in one form or another, they could also do the same thing, right? They would be able to access that ping-wise. But if you're going to have the Koreans not worried?
Our Koreans aren't going to be on ping for the whole time, like they'll be coming and going. So I think there'll be more than ample opportunity to scrim internationally when we want it. And yeah, for all lands, we have boot camps as well. But even just for the online stuff, the Koreans will be in America for periods of time. So when that happens, like we can scrim internationally as well. It's just an early wake up for me, unless I want to go there as well. But yeah,
you know what they say about the early bird getting the worm.
The worms aren't going to get themselves, mate.
Exactly. I mean, somebody's got to get that worm, and I literally cannot get enough of worms. So I will be there. Don't you worry about that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever considered that the late worm doesn't get eaten? Everyone talks about like the early bird getting the worm, but if you sleep in as the worm, it's way better. I feel like
I do think that I'm probably more comparable to a worm than a bird in terms of my lifestyle. So maybe there is actually some merit to being a late worm. Yeah. And maybe I'll just stop showing up to work and see what happens. See if I don't get eaten.
In this metaphor, the late worm, because they got up so late, they were able to sign sugar-free. So it all sort of works out. It all sort of works out.
Yeah, that's Chris theory. Simple Chris theory right there, you know?
Wormheads rise up.
Yeah, if you have a reputation as a lazy enough, pathetic worm, then eventually sugar-free will fall into your lap. It's simple. Simple worm theory.
Are your Koreans over yet, Chris? Are they going to?
So Faith is over, and then Twilight. I think Twilight just got out of military, so I think he wanted like an extra bit in Korea. Yeah. So I think Twilight flies in. I think like it's not too long now, maybe like 2 weeks or something. But obviously, we're still.
So he's going to miss the start of the season.
It's just trustworthy, young, hungry talent behavior right there out of Twilight, to be honest. Just wanting a little bit of extra time at home to chill, keep playing, with himself, presumably, and, all will be fine.
I understand, but I also think Howard didn't necessarily sign a grizzled veteran for his early bird behavior, I'm just looking for a solid late worm-like performance out of him, just trying to,
You're just waiting for the anagram to get used so you can finally
stop necessarily looking for that, you're going to know your players,
So I've always really respected Twilight because when, a lot of players, when matches get really close, they get more quiet or their performance gets worse. I've always credited Twilight to be a player when matches get closer, he gets more loud and starts making more calls and, makes game losing or game winning calls. So I think you've got like a really good pickup for that because your roster in general is pretty quiet from what I saw. So I think in like the clutch moments, I think you can rely on Twilight there.
Yeah. How was his English when he commented with Shark? I could ask you now, on the podcast.
It's really good. I mean,
like in game, it's like really good, right?
Yeah, his English is really good.
Twilight's got goated English.
So it's best
when
to
he
check
tries.
several
When he
weeks
tries.
after you've signed.
I mean, if I'm asked now while you're here,
How much do you think he tried?
I'll find out now.
How much do you think he tried on Boston?
Oh, well, he didn't have to speak English there, did he? So.
Yeah, I'm not talking about language. I'm talking generally.
Gameplay. Early bird behavior.
Even late worm behavior. Like, did he even bother to dig himself out of the soil?
Was he a bird or a worm?
I mean, he beat us. He beat us in the play-ins, so you must.
You were Toronto, bro. Like, London beat you in the play-ins.
I mean, you weren't in the play-ins, mate. What are you saying?
Let's not go
was it, 11th?
What's it? You were there.
That's unclaimed territory.
Even the best can lose to London. Look at Atlanta. Come on now.
I mean, we were good, guys. I don't know. So you guys are chatting. We were good.
I was trying to shit on Toronto here.
Leave us out of this, okay? I think in my career, I'm 12-0 against Toronto. Like, I mean, it's the only team I've never lost to because we would always dog them in.
You didn't play last year either.
Yeah, we didn't play once last year, I think.
Yeah, true, actually. And then now Adams killed it. So I maintained fully.
There you go.
12-0, baby. I was unbeaten against Atlanta too until they started. Well, beating me, I suppose.
Really went down.
I was technically unbeaten against everybody until I lost.
Oh, you remember that one scrim when Atlanta? It was 2021, and Funny Astro was on Brig. It was like end of the year playoffs or something, and finally you guys made it to like the playoffs bracket, and we started scrimming at end of the year in Hawaii. And I just remember Astro getting absolutely dogged on Brig versus like Ryan Comps and shit like that, just getting caught with his pants down again and again and again.
When we were in Korea,
it was like 21 playoffs. You were in Korea, we were in Hawaii, something like that. It was just like the one scrim to see like how good a Fusion, because everyone was saying like, oh, Fusion's really good this meta, and he just got fucking plowed by Ryan.
We actually I don't know, I swear it always happens. We made like a slight glow up towards playoffs and then just fucking actively shit the bed during the playoffs. And then when you tell them, and then we were actually okay in scrims, it's always cope because But I mean, I guess Fusion always, apart from season 1, fucked up playoffs. So cheers.
Cheers.
We want to talk a bit as well because between our last episode and this episode, we did talk about most of the partner stuff last episode, but we've actually had the official partner announcement vote now. And maybe the biggest news to really touch on, because we talked a lot about like some of the behind the scenes stuff, but the biggest thing to touch on is probably that now NA Spot didn't go through in the end because of all the issues with Cloud9 and NRG. But then what Blizzard have done in replacement of that is they've moved it over to Korea to Zeta division. So how do we feel about this change?
I think it's actually pretty reasonable, like I think maybe in hindsight, especially with hindsight, we should have just given NRG the slot from day one and then they would have accepted it and then we'd have free. But I think once the C9 the spot, it was like, I feel like any
This
other
was the
option.
best solution.
Yeah, because I think Zeta deserve a spot. Like they are a big org. They have an insane team. Like I think any way that we can milk the Japanese audience is probably like objectively like a good thing. And people say, oh, it means like that they're not going to go to LAN, but like that's the same. Like I guess realistically, I guess like six
same
max,
for the third NA spot, right?
Oh yeah, only 5 or 6 of these teams are going to go to the LANs anyway. Realistically, I think. Like T1, I don't think it's going to any fucking LANs between you and me. So I don't know. I think it's fine. Like I think they were they put themselves or got put into a shit situation. But I think even though like the lack of parity seems weird, I think were we not all calling for a lack of parity last year in terms of give Korea more juice?
Well, when I look at these 9 orgs, it all seems pretty reasonable, right? Like I look at these 9 and go, yeah, all of them seem like pretty worthy of a spot. And it feels like they're all putting together a roster and yeah. They were always going to be screwed out of a certain amount of LAN spots, right? Because for the 3 regions, for this first LAN at least, there's 6 spots. So 3 partner teams were going to guarantee to miss out, even best case scenario from a partner perspective. So it seems more than reasonable. Zeta division big enough. Certainly had the results last year. They were like 1 map away from going to the 2 OWCS LANs. Did obviously really well at the Esports World Cup as well. Seems really reasonable, honestly.
I think Zeta deserves it, but NA does kind of get fucked. There were so many players and coaches on these NA teams that were getting offers from teams they thought would be partner teams or teams that would be in that just kind of got fucked now because the third slot in NA is, it was a mess. I think obviously best case would have been NRG or a C9 would have just been in. But after that, there's not as big orgs. So I don't think Blizzard, fucked up after the fact, but really not selecting NRG, who was already signing and offering 2 players. It's such a throw. And then after that, NRG just doesn't want to be in anymore, Or I don't know what the talks were like after that, but it's such a throw. And then, I think it's fair now that the slot goes to Zeta. Maybe you could have given it to like OALGD or the Team China, because I think they would have sold an insane amount of skins. But any team that gets it is probably better than any org that's going to be in NA at that point. So like now it's fair, but I would have liked to see there be free NA teams because, there was org interest and C9 ended up doing that. It's a shit show and it's not a great situation, but it also affects us where now there's just not as many teams that are going to import players anymore because from my understanding, if it was given to NRG or a team like that, they would have imported players and we would have had even better scrims and a better region in general. So it makes the NA region worse. It kind of fucks us, but I think Zeta getting it is deserved.
Yeah, very, very much same boat as Cass. I think it's a deserved thing for Zeta, but selfishly, it would have been nicer for NA to have more teams, more competition, more money. Like we personally all get paid less as a result of the fact that NRG wasn't a third horse in the race. It's like we had a conditional offer from NRG, which was, greater than what we wound up accepting with Space Station because, nothing was signed until partnership stuff was resolved. And once partnership offers were out, it was like, oh, okay, NRG, they're going to rescind their offer because it's conditional. And Space Station, well, they don't have to pay much because there's nobody else. And if there is somebody else, it's Cloud9, which isn't going to pay anyone anyway. So I mean, like from our perspective, like as a team in that ecosystem, it negatively impacted us from a salary perspective. it negatively impacts the whole region because, there's one less team importing players and trying to make the region a little bit more competitive in that regard. But at the end of the day, Japan is the only region that's carrying viewership internationally. So giving it to a Japanese org, that's cool. That works. And the Korean players getting paid more than sub minimum wage is probably also reasonable, given they might be working the hardest out of everyone.
Seems all right, yeah.
And everyone listening to the podcast.
They've got plenty of worms over there.
Not to jump on
they're such early birds.
Not to jump on the Chris loves China train, but isn't the Chinese viewership going to be insane too? I feel like those teams in general, before in Overwatch League, they had a big fan base. So I think
I'm surprised they didn't give it to a Chinese franchise.
Yeah, I think
there's definitely something there, like legally, logistically, because I think they would have given it to them otherwise. There's something there. Like everything's always more complicated when trying to do the China stuff. I mean, like Chinese viewership numbers have always been insane, but they've also been kind of like questioned. Like you don't really know what you're getting.
I think this first LAN in China is going to be like a big question because that venue that they have there looks incredible. So if they could fill that venue up, you're kind of going to see, like, is there still that much interest over in China, even though they just didn't have the game for more than a year, which is...
Oh, they'll fill it up, mate. Don't worry about the Chinese.
They'll fill it up. They got it over there.
Yeah. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
One thing China has is people. That's like their number one thing. They got the people.
And none of them are in prison or anything either, because there's no crime. So there's actually more people available to go to it as well.
Exactly. Everyone's just
right. I forgot it's utopia over there.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't be shocked if they just added LGD or whoever it would be as a partner team like partway through the year. My impression with like everything that's happened in China is it's almost all happened a bit separately from the rest of the ecosystem in terms of NA and EMEA, like in terms of open qualifier and stuff, because they don't, I think it's like officially the 19th of Feb or something they get their servers back. So their whole OWCS is happening not until like end of February, start of March and stuff, So there's this huge, they kind of just exist as their own thing right now. So I wouldn't even be shocked if we see a partner team just tagged on or something just for like the top Chinese org or something for those once again players.
All right, can we talk about what we're all here to talk about, the main event?
Because there's one more roster that we've not talked about.
Well, we need to talk about the Korean rosters too, but the main one is the video. Like, I don't care too much. Have you seen the video, Max?
Of course, mate. Of course. I was thinking about maybe once the tap gets opened, once teams start getting their skin money, then, finally the team, like Virtus Pro, will get some money back on their investment and be able to hire someone to edit a single video that isn't a source filmmaker video from 2011.
I thought this was AI originally. I think, could AI?
It feels AI.
Because the Tracer statue at the front, that's like AI to me. I feel like they did 5 heroes. I swear that like the third one isn't even an Overwatch hero. I'm not even convinced it's like an Overwatch hero. The white guy standing like this guy here. I don't even know who the fuck this is. But
looks like a World of Warcraft character, man. Like, I don't know. It's just insane.
It might not even be an Overwatch character. They didn't even normally when it's these, they'll ask you like, oh, what are your 5 favorite heroes? But here they just did 4 DPS and a diva. Some skins, some without skins.
Can we get full screen on that second guy? Because that is not an Overwatch character at all.
I was told it's Reaper. Apparently it's a Reaper skin. But like when I saw it, really? I thought this was not an Overwatch character. I thought they just fucking thrown this guy in here for shits and giggles. But I want to know the Tracer statue at the back. Like, did someone design this? How is this? Like, what's the logic? Yeah, I like the way they just use the Overwatch music too. So I don't know. I think this is just the SSG video is so good. Actually, especially given the circumstances that the Koreans couldn't make it over and stuff. Like, they've made it so good, and then this is just so bad. And I don't understand VP. Like, I really, really don't understand VP at all. Because VP is they're doing a fucking team house, right? Like, they're doing a team house in Europe, like an actual full-on team house.
Yeah, they're getting for full Overwatch League experience. Team house, paid for food, everyone's going to be there, etc., etc.
When they were bidding for players competing, VP was VP was saying that we're going to give you crazy money even if we don't be a partner. So they're they're dumping insane money, really, really, really competitive like money in, and then this is the level of like care that the org actually has for it. I'm telling you, it's Russian oil money laundering or some shit like that. Like it's the only way. There's no other solutions to this.
I mean, if you have like a team house, you have all that, and you can give good salaries, and you're not a Saudi org, which goes for something when you're negotiating. Shouldn't you get a better roster than that?
Well, I think this is what we'll maybe talk about. Is I think this roster has come out, in my opinion. Obviously, touch wood when they knocked me out of championships and we clipped this. But I think this has come out pretty underwhelming. I think they really wanted your man Kellen, right? Like they were trying to fight for him. I think like a lot of the players that went to TU and TM, I think VP were actively trying to recruit. It just feels like they were the team that couldn't get anyone over the line, and then maybe were like last minute rushing.
Yeah, I think this org might. Oh, you go first if you want.
I was just going to say, I think that what this roster looks like to me is a roster that has had, when Cass was talking about, you have like your S tier, your A tier, your B tier options when recruiting players. This roster feels like a team that have missed out on a bunch of their S tier options and then have had to take who's left available to sign afterwards.
Yeah, I think it's very much that situation where there were teams in Europe that were just paying like even more or had more appealing cores, like there were these two cores of like Kev Kai and a team with Quartz on it, basically, where all of your top talent really wanted to go to there, and teams formed around that. And then once all of that talent has been stripped away, all you really had left was Gala. I think the Gala's a really actually super appealing piece, but maybe not to Korean players.
No, I haven't fucking said this. I don't give a fuck. Fuck him, Like we offered Gala, and he had a verbal agreement with us, and then he immediately rescinded said verbal agreement with the excuse of, I thought verbal agreement, as in yes, I'm locked in, meant I'm interested in the team. That's what he claims. That's what a verbal agreement means in Spain. But yeah, he was like he was going to be on our team. That was going to be maybe like a Gala like Sky thing, and then he ended up like. I guess he still has loyalty like to the org or wanted to like continue to play with the players and coaches over there. But I feel like for Gala, like he was one of those that everybody was like, yeah, this guy is like maybe like the up and coming European talent in terms of like. And I feel like what I really didn't understand about this roster beyond all of like the potential, like I don't see how they're gonna play dive. I don't see like where the flexibility is. Is Gala not like the main support position? Like, should he not lock that in? Because like he has like all of the strengths of like Violet and Vega in terms of he's going to be able to play like a functional Lucio and Juno, but actually when you can play double flex comps, that's where you want him. But then like how does Gala play a Lari with Fixer? Like what is the composition here? It feels like you're going to play Anna Break, like it's just going to be like Gala Anna and then Gala like Kiri. Like I don't think it's bad, but it feels somewhere that like the way to milk, at least the way that when we offered him, like the way we were looking to milk him was in a two flex situation. Like actually get that like genuinely really flexible backline.
I mean, I think it can work either way, right? Like you can have someone like Skewed. I think Skewed is like the old version of that Vega type player, right? He never had the Lucio on him, but he had like this insane, like, best brig in the world. And then he had all the flex support heroes as well. So he was a perfect person to play as like a second support in all of these Anna Brig double flex support metas. But at the end of the day, he goes back to Korea and he starts being a solo support for a team, and he's a very serviceable flex support as well. And I think for Gala, it's like, with the state of talent in Europe, who are you going to pick up that's better at flex support than Gala as well? You can extol all the virtues of having him on main support and the fact that you can get all this value out of his flexibility, but at the same time, you can also just get a lot of value out of the fact that he's extremely talented and he can be a really.
But is the argument, the counter argument, not that if there is import, like if they're able to import as they clearly are, that you should just import
instead of Fixer, get a flex support?
Simple was doing the Lord's work for Vision Esports in the qualifiers, like. Could they have not just done like Gala Simple instead?
I guess it was an option to them all along, but they just preferred having him on the flex support. There's
also depends on what Gala prefers himself, right? Because I think he should just go for a Vega type role, but maybe he wanted to flex support. We don't know about that, but
yeah, that's true.
I agree. I feel like they should have picked up a flex support and just have him be a Vega type player where this year that's going to be like really invaluable. I think you really saw people like Chio get exposed last year at EWC with hero bans, and I think Gala can like expose other players like Faith and Funny Ash showing to you if he like leaned into it.
Well, VP did really well in those type of metas and at
Because
the
of that,
Esports World
yeah.
Cup as well. Yeah, like it was something I could really tap into. But now it feels like this roster doesn't have access to those type of things at all.
Is
So
this
I don't
roster
know
worse
exactly.
than their roster last year?
I feel like on paper it's slightly better talent wise, but I also feel like this is, to be fair, this is also kind of no flame. I feel somewhat similarly about like the SSG roster is. I don't see where it shines, Whereas I think VP last year had something that they were genuinely, they had a comp and a style which was really annoying to play against, and they milked it in EWC and they had success. Like they were they were maybe meta dependent, but it felt like on the meta when they could play their maps and comps, they were actually like capable of winning. Whereas I look at this and I think, not only is it feels easy to exploit in terms of there's going to be maps where this team is going to be good at. I don't see is this team ever going to win Brawl versus like TM or like even versus us? I think. Is it going to win Dive? Is it going to win Double Flex? What I don't see from this roster is any like gambles in terms of what it's going to really like shine at,
I mean, I think that happens with a lot of rosters. Like, you compared it to SSG. I think like the difference between like the way that SSG has been built and the way that team has been built is that like SSG, vibes aside, very much built with the knowledge that, hero bans are coming and you need to have lots of flexibility. You need to have players that can do a lot of different things. But what Smash has wound up doing with VP, it's like, I mean, he's got Vest as a solo tank, right? Like this is the opposite of flexibility. And he's, I guess, with what he's done with Gala, he's put Gala in the role where he can't really utilize his flexibility at all. So I think that there's like definitely a big concern for VP and the fact that it's like there's potential to have some really high highs in specific circumstances, but with hero bans, like it really limits how much you can do that. And people can take advantage of the fact that they're limited with bans all the time. Whereas, if a roster is built more with flexibility above all else in mind, it's better suited to hero bans overall. And you saw it with Toronto last year, they get this ultra flexible main support, ultra flexible main tank, and you can just plug and play with so many different things. You have so many different styles available to you. But if you just find yourself with someone that can only play off tanks as your solo tank, like it's a huge gamble.
I think as well, one thing that feels, I think, particularly bad is when Vest has his highest highs, it's when he can play Sigma. And he genuinely is probably the best in the world, or at least comparable to anyone at the top. But I feel like Sigma's just been a non-entity since the World Cup all of last year. And also, I feel like Sigma's a really easy hero to ban against. If they take you to the like traditional Sigma maps, there's easy enough ways to either directly ban the hero or to ban a lot of the supporting cast as well. So I just worry as well that even in theory, their biggest strength is actually really, really exploitable versus all these hero ban situations.
Plus, Hattie's on TM, so if you can't play Sigma against him because he's just gonna fucking lock the Rhine and fuck you up. I feel like actually like all the Sigma is just shit, but also has like so many counters which even now like European teams can play. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm a bit surprised to see only 5 players too. Like maybe that's why they should have like used some of the money to I guess like plug some holes. But yeah, I don't know. It, like on paper, at least at this moment, it seems really, really. Like I would put the Landon Junkbuck team over them if I was to do a power rankings right now. Like I would actually have them.
Yeah. Well, are you sure that they're getting paid that much?
I mean, I don't know how much they're getting paid, but I know like they offered like really, really significant money. Like I don't think they got outbid for anyone. And they didn't lose out on players for money. I'm pretty sure that's what I'm really confident on. I mean, it's possible that like the money
it could be that
down.
they offered a lot of money to one guy.
Yeah.
Like they had one big offer that they could make to try and make their core really appealing.
No,
and then from there they don't have that much.
Yeah, I know it's definitely wasn't just one player. Like 100% wasn't one player. I don't think it's possible. Like as the players that they started to compete for had less competition, that certain like maybe they have one of those like salary structures where like a few players are getting quite good and a few players are getting quite like low. But like I promise you, like even when it looked like they weren't gonna get partnership, they were still quite happy to spend money. And even regardless of team house and food, even if you're on 2K a month, that's still an insane investment, you know?
Yeah, I feel like players underestimate that though. From one thing I've noticed is players just look at the salary number and they don't look at all the benefits that an org can give. I feel like that's one thing I've flamed a lot of players for is they don't look at a whole package. They just look at the front number that they get a month in their bank account. They don't look at where they're gonna live, what their housing situation is gonna be like are there gonna be boot camps? Is this
The
team
tax
gonna
in the area.
win? You know, yes. But I feel like that's one thing, you know, players should look at more. All the circumstances and bonuses around a contract. Are we going to be at a team house? Is our food going to be paid for? At boot camps, you know, is our food going to be paid for? Stuff like that is stuff you really need to know before you get the full picture. And I feel like a lot of the time players are just looking at the number. The two numbers. They look at the prize money split and they look at the salary.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, you're dealing with people and negotiating with people that have spent their entire lives sitting in their bedrooms playing video games on their computer. The chances that these people are financially literate is so low. Even the people that have been in Overwatch League for multiple years still have absolutely no clue what they're talking about when it comes to negotiating a deal, or, you know, understanding what their salary is actually worth or what the deal is actually worth beyond the salary figure, because they don't understand the value of any benefits or perks.
Yeah, so VP might be getting fucked where they're offering all this stuff, like they're offering food and housing, and they're maybe offering like 1,000 a month less or something than another team, but they're giving that back in other value, but they're not doing a good enough job wording that, or you know, players aren't looking at that well enough where they're not able to sign their S tier picks, or they just made a lot of mistakes. Right? I don't know what they're doing, but if they're offering all this, what Chris is saying, I feel like they should put a better roster on the table.
Yeah, what I felt like, sorry, but like what I felt somewhere was that like VP were maybe quite loyal to, like, I think Smash was never under consideration, and I feel like Shockwave was locked in quite early, and I feel somewhere that like, yeah, like if because you locked in Shockwave, it meant it's not that Shockwave is a bad player, but that meant you couldn't get Kev because Kev wanted to play with Kai, and you couldn't get Quartz because they obviously compete. I think immediately those decisions to play around Shockwave and maybe Smash is fine, and maybe no one was like, I don't want to work with Smash, but maybe like just the fact that you effectively eliminated yourself from Kevin Quartz, like the two big dogs in EU. Maybe that's what became really hard to convince like certain other players to join.
Because I think, to be fair, the salaries were actually, it was like, I mean, I don't know for sure, but maybe it's different for some of like the Quartz Kev players who would just get like the most lucrative offers from every org. But I think for the majority of players, they had all the housing benefits, they had the food benefits, and their salaries were competitive, if not exactly the same as other offers. But they just lost out on, I think, especially in EMEA, people were so keen to play with Kev, they were so keen to play with Quartz. And if they couldn't be on one of those teams, you know, people would essentially sacrifice salary or sacrifice benefits to get on teams with those players because they thought that was such like a boost to their chances to do well this year and to get to the events. And I think that's where, while VP had like some benefits, right? Like I think Gala very much invested in Vessler, very much invested in Shockwave, like enjoys playing with those players. So they essentially got that kind of bond advantage in getting Gala, and that's probably why they got Gala over a lot of other teams. But it meant they lost out on a lot of other players who were keener to play with Quartz, keener to play with Kev. And now they're just, I don't know. I think it's really hard for them. I think the only thing that really is going for them is that I think in EMEA, they're going to be the only team in a team house. So I don't know if like there are like intangible benefits there that will help. I don't know if it closes the gap with talent, closes the gap with hero pools, all of this. But that's like the one advantage they have.
Feels like that roster is going to have to play Dorado every series, like realistically. And then like the same thing that like all those European teams had last year is like you have to find a solution that is really hard to find.
So you've gone to the opposite, like the complete opposite here. You basically build a roster just
Chris
for
dive.
Dive
one trick.
A dive merchant now.
Well, that's it. Honestly, like you fool me once, you know, shame on you. Fool me twice, I'm not getting fooled twice. You know, I realized that like teams like yours that would just pick the 3 worst maps in the pool, like when you beat Ents, even though you won the Malga Mirror, it was irrelevant. Like because you could just pick 2 dive maps. You could just pick Ilios and then either, I guess, was it like Jib that was in the pool?
I think.
Jib or Hollywood, you know? And actually, that series against ENS, even though everything was done on the Amalgamir, it wasn't decided by the Amalgamir at all, just because of loser picks and because you got higher seed, And I think people will maybe talk about us and stuff at some point. I think people maybe I think that with Dive One Tricks is maybe we're not that bad at the Hazard Cup, we're not as good at it as we are Dive. But I think the ability to just dive pick around teams is OP, and I got fucked by it for an entire year, so I'm not doing that shit again.
It's really, really good to be able to pick every dive map until you face Korea. They're just better at dive than you. And they're also better at the Malga.
And then they're better at Malga,
So what do you do?
It doesn't matter what hero comps you play, then it's just a different problem,
Yeah, that's the problem, maybe every solution to beat the Koreans is just one that requires just popping up on game day. There's maybe, I don't know. I think this year I'm gonna fucking mirror the Koreans on dive and hit them to dive and then see what happens. Maybe it looks foolish, but it feels like everything else is equally unsuccessful.
Yeah, I mean, last year, our problem kind of going into these internationals was we're playing dive against all the Western teams, but we know we can't win dive against the Korean teams because they have S tier on us, right? You're not going to win against Chio, Fielder Backline, or Chorong Shu. So then maybe your only way to win is on Rush or on Brawl comps, because historically, right, at the World Cup, Korea's been bad at that, and just in general, Korea's been worse at Brawl comps. So if you're gonna pick one comp architect to beat the Koreans on, it's that. But I feel like as the West, right now, people are just building rosters to beat the rest of the West, and then we'll see against Korea, And that's kind of how I did it this year too. It's going into last year, especially, that first LAN at Dallas, I was I have only mind for the Koreans. How do I beat these Korean teams? We did good against some scrims. We can really beat them in match. But I feel like this year, the mindset's almost different for every Western team, where it's just we're going to try and be the best in the West, and we'll see against the Korean teams,
Especially as there's only 2 slots, you need to play really, you really got to make sure you qualify for LANs. It's really easy to not qualify this year.
Do you think it's possible as well? Because I feel like maybe this happened to you last year a bit as well, Cass, is that even though you were able to play dive, you guys never got to scrim a dive mirror when you were playing domestically. So therefore, there was always these Korean teams, I'm sure when they run into each other in scrims and they pick Gibraltar, they pick Ilios, they just get a really high quality dive mirror to fix and solve and improve. There's never a version of that. Whereas maybe there's at least a couple of teams who would be willing to do it now between NA and EMEA. And there's I don't know if it pushes you above to Korean level, if you will, but it's there's a chance it's better.
I mean, teams like Nightmare would dive mirror us, but there's just such a gap in quality. But in general, yeah, we would pick Gibraltar, and every team would try and play a payload stalling strat.
Yeah,
and, you just figure out how to break that, and you just keep doing it. You don't learn that much after you figure out how to break it. That's why when Twisted Minds pulled out the May stuff on Gibraltar. In the match against us, we knew it was going to be really easy, because we had so much practice against that. But in general, yeah, maybe more teams are going to play dive this year, but I don't think there's the quality of dive, especially on backlines in the West.
Should we talk about our Korean overlords then? Because their rosters have already been announced, because their tournament is locked in. It's starting this weekend on the 24th. If that's a Friday, whatever date the Friday is, I think it's 24th. And the roster announcements came out, and Crazy Raccoon, Falcons, Zeta. It's the same guys, unfortunately. It's those same fuckers who beat us last year. It's the same guys, unfortunately. Falcons looking a little bit slimmer because Smurf and Happy have gone to the military, as we kind of knew since the end of last season. But other than that, everything on those top 3 rosters is completely unchanged.
Yeah, the leakers nailed this one, presumably. Yeah, got it all there.
Now that one to the cross. All right, I'm going to take my hat off to your Stacks.
Yeah, seems like Stacks OW's Crazy Raccoon source might have been lying to him.
Why would Lip lie to him like that?
I don't know. I thought Lip was one of the good guys, but clearly not.
They don't have 17-year-old Koreans leaking to them, so they don't get the Discord messages from that side of the world.
I guess the only interesting roster is maybe T1 one, and then maybe there's like a merit in someone. Need to find them or figure out what's happening there. I feel like with T1, somewhere it's like a similar situation to VP maybe, except theirs is more understandable. Like it was maybe just too hard to take any of the players that are already under contract from those teams. So you were just kind of stuck with what you could do. And I think they've probably picked up like the best pieces for each role that they could, but it just looks really hard to see this team. Like this team to me feels like a team that could much easier lose to like the teams below them than have a chance of beating the teams above them.
I think because when I look, there's a couple of pieces, right? Because Donghak and Proud, I think, are genuinely competitive with their counterparts in this big three. I think they're really up there. I think Zest is a player who's been around for a while. I feel like Zest just always ends up. Sometimes he looks like the best player in the lobby when he plays against the other sort of middle of the pack teams. But whenever he plays against the big three, you never get that kind of performance that you get out of a proper or a Heesang or whatever, where like they're the carry in the lobby. So I feel like similarly with Viper, same thing. Sometimes looks like the best player in the world against a couple of maps a year or something, but never been able to replicate it consistently. But they're probably the best options they could have, right, for flex DPS. And maybe Viper still has there's more to get out of him. But I feel like it's the backline, which is the biggest question mark. Because Skewed, obviously a talented player, but is in the sort of come back from a break thing, even though he's been playing for a good few months now. So I don't know if, again, you look at the counterpart, Shu, Fielder, Finn. This is a really high standard, which I don't think he reaches now. And then Opener, compared to Chirong, Violet, Chio, it's not even close, you know? So I feel like the backline is when this team really falls apart.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be equally as scared of the FTG roster as I would be of the T1, to be honest.
Agreed.
I think the FTG roster actually looks really solid.
I think
for that.
It's got more upsides, right? Like there's more risks in there maybe, but between Vigilante, Heesung, even Prophet on the right heroes, Sun Jun I think has actually looked really good. Even though he looked kind of mid when he played in NA, I think actually when he played in Korea, he looked really good. So there's more risks on this FTG roster, but there's more upsides.
They can take more risks, right?
I mean, they can afford to because they're not paying anything.
I think it's really smart. You know, our Korean overlords outfunk us in the game and out of the game because all Zeta, Crazy Raccoon, and Falcons, they were all on 2 years or 1+1 contracts. So they got to keep their superstar rosters and add to it if they wanted to, while all of EU and NA were all on 1 years, you know? So we had roster mania. But over in Korea on those top 3 teams, there was no roster mania.
Mania free zone.
I mean, it is a utopia right here, so of course there's no mania.
Yeah, so T1 is the only gamble, but I actually agree. I feel like that roster is not going to make any of the 2-person lands, and if EWC is 4 teams from Korea, I'd be worried if I'm them that they don't make it.
They could really not make it. Yeah, especially with Rush at the helm.
I think in Donghak we got to trust. You know, that guy was doing God's work when he had the Lee Jae-gon Izayaki backline weighing him down. And before Lee Jae-gon Izayaki, it was, God, who was it? It was Irony and someone else.
Bliss
Irony.
Irony?
Was it not Irony and Bliss?
Yeah, but they looked quite good with that.
Yeah, I remember when they had the Irony roster, it was you would have a segment on your stream where it was how many seconds since Irony last died, basically, because it was just this.
It was a
unreal,
frequent segment.
Yeah, absolutely unreal on a timer thing, and then they had to kick Bliss in order to get Izayaki. It's Irony is so bad that we need to kick Bliss in order to get Lee Jae-gon as a package deal with Izayaki, but then Lee Jae-gon just sucked instead.
They got worse after that.
His brains
they got
out.
way worse after that.
It was a downgrade for sure.
Yeah.
I guess one thing that we should talk about if you stick the rosters back on the screen is Falcons. So I think in Europe and NA right now, I think technically roster isn't locked. I think there's still a day or two where teams could add if they wanted to. But is Falcons not absolutely fucked if this roster goes in like this? Because are they not guaranteed to lose on all of the dive maps because they only have Hanbin solo tank and Chio is also way less flexible? Does this Falcons team not literally need someone if it's whatever's fucking happening there? otherwise, is Crazy Raccoon not doing? To be fair, Crazy Raccoon should have done this in the series against Falcons at LAN. They really fucked up their draft like massively, taking 8 Mauga mirrors and winning 0 instead of just doing Ilios and Gibraltar and Hollywood and then trying to cheese one more map. But like, how like in hero bans, like I guess it was really close for most of the year, but it feels like in hero bans, Crazy Raccoons had an edge. And I look at it now and I think, well, Falcons have just lost really significant flexibility. How can they win?
With all the metas Falcons had success with, for Mauga comp at Dallas, for your Orisa comp at the end of stage 2 in Korea, and then the Mauga comp again in Stockholm, which are all metas where basically every team is playing the same comp on every map type thing. Where whenever it hits that kind of thing, they get the same buff and at the old Dallas core, and they would just find a way to be the best at that version of the comp when it's all that's being played. But in theory, that doesn't happen anymore in hero bans, or it's way rarer. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's really hard to see. There's like so much pressure on Hanbin, who is good at loads of heroes, but it feels like they're going to have to find like a Diva solution on these dive maps, like a Diva and a Brig solution, which just feels like it's going to ultimately be worse when all the other teams.
Maybe they're just relying on Hazard staying strong, and they think like the off tanks can pick up Hazard and just play.
I mean, maybe you're right. What if you could just play? What if Hazard solves the problem?
Everyone Dorado ban Hazard, then you pin Diva against the Winston. Like it feels like, to be honest, I look at Zeta and Zeta have the same problem, right? Like they don't have like a Winston like player. So it feels like for Crazy Raccoons, if I'm Moon, I think there's like 1 or 2 map picks into bans where I feel like I'm so heavily favored that like worst case Crazy Raccoons are starting like each series like 1 or 2 games up, you know?
Do you think it's some of not? You know, we talked about, I can't remember what it was, but we talked about like the idea of like how the introduction of Juno has saved Funny Astro from hero bans to a degree, you know, because he's no longer can't be targeted. Is there an argument that now that Lucio Juno exists and Shio has the Astro gene and can play both heroes, and now Hazard has been introduced, and we've seen Burner play a load of Hazard, and Hanbin always just seems to, you know, like Junker Queen, Ram, Mauga always just seems to pick up these new tanks. Does Hazard and Juno give them like it's still worse than Crazy Raccoon, sure, but does it at least give them a solution in almost all of these situations?
Maybe.
To get away with it? Like it's still worse, sure, but it's not as bad as it would have been last year.
I don't know, yeah, maybe it depends. Like I feel like once Hazard gets toned down, I think Hazard, maybe this will come back to be like a terrible take. I feel somehow Hazard struggles on the really big maps. Like Winston is so much like more mobility and can like jump so much further, and the bubble is more protection. It feels like a balanced Hazard is really not going to be good on Dorado, because I think even now like Hazard, there's like 1 or 2 bans you can do to the Hazard comp, which makes it really hard to play on Dorado, even in this like broken state, I think. And I feel like Diva just, in my opinion, Diva just isn't a solution to dive maps. Like I think Diva like is just always beaten by good Brig Winston teams. You know, maybe the players to always ban Brig if you're one of these teams, and then Diva, I don't know. Maybe there's ways you can work around it. But it feels like even if you're T1, it feels like actually you're licking your lips on certain situations of playing those, because there's ways that you can really force Dong Hacks dive versus like Ram tank only players. Maybe.
I feel like you can draft around it. Like I don't necessarily agree. I feel like it's a disadvantage, but even like last year you gave the example of Crazy Raccoon against Falcons and Crazy Raccoon being so dumb, but first map was Falcons pick. They picked Oasis, so you can't play dive, and then after that you're gonna have to win at least 2 Mauga maps in order to win the series.
I think you need to win 1, because you pick Gibraltar second. Falcons are also brain dead, so they will always just pick Flashpoint because they fucking
Why wouldn't they just pick Hybrid? Why wouldn't they pick Hybrid?
They literally, but the entire year they never did it once. Like they always pick Flashpoint first, right? Like that's like it was literally like, because they loved the Suravasa pick. And then I think you take Hollywood, and then the map opens up. So on map 6 you can take Ilios. You I think if Crazy Raccoons were like really like understood that they couldn't win the mirror, I think they can force free dive maps. Okay, yeah, if Falcons were smart. But they didn't, because both teams, again, the first pick was Flashpoint. They always, like the entire year, no matter the matter, these fuckers picked the difference between New Drink City and Suravasa as if it was like the most important thing.
Yeah, but in the end, you know, Falcons even won on Suravasa every time because just Mauga mirror. So I think if you're Falcons, you catch on pretty quick when they pick Gibraltar second map, and you make sure Hollywood's off the table.
They just wouldn't have done it.
I have a time machine.
I don't know about that.
if I had a time machine, I would bet my entire life savings that they still just pick Flashpoint. Like, it feels like they would literally. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but even then,
But Ilias
right,
was
like-
open
like-
for like after like map 5 and stuff. So I don't know. Like, I feel even then, like, yeah, I don't know. I think they could have drafted way better, like 100%, because it was so obvious to everyone watching that this Magama wasn't necessarily going their way, you know.
yeah. I mean, they should have, but even then, they had to win at least one Malga map because Falcons
that's
gets
true.
4 of the map picks because they got first
Yeah.
map pick. I think if Crazy Raccoon would have gotten first map pick, that's how we won against Nightmare actually in the upper final bracket, and even at the end, we had to win Lijiang, even though we had the first map pick, right? Because we win Ilios, and then we win Gibraltar or whatever dive map we picked, and
No,
then we
I
won
mean-
Esperanza, but then we still had to play one Rushmere at the end. So I agree with you that they should have just went with their strength, but I think Crazy Raccoon's thinking was just, we're gonna have to beat these fuckers on Mauga at one point anyway. Let's just try and do it, from the start.
The thing is, like, I mean, not to turn this into a heated debate because you're not Max, you're not my normal sparring partner. But I feel like if you can guarantee like free maps in the dive, I think the correct strategy is just to pick a different cheese on all of the other 4 maps, Like, or maybe play the Malgamera map 1 and then say, fuck it, we'll do a ball comp here, we'll try an Orisa comp here, we'll try a queen comp here. Just do something different. And effectively, you only need to win 1 out of 4, right? Like, you're right that they need to win like 1 Malga map, but I think you just fucking throw shit at it for 4 maps. Take it back to a dive map. Feel comfortable to win that. Like, obviously with hindsight after they lose, but to me that's like I guess that would be like the only way that I could really see them winning that series. And I feel like the way that they did draft it was like the easiest way to lose, really.
Yeah, it's kind of what they did in Dallas, right? Like they did that in Dallas, where they just drafted all the non-mirror maps. And
They
went for the
exactly right. They started to
non-mirror.
do like the fucking Roadhog on map 1, and then they took it like, and that was it. Because even in Dallas, right, like Falcons were actually, it was fucking Malga meta back then too. Like Falcons were winning the Malga meta, right?
Yeah.
And Raccoons drafted around it. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like, but I think that same thing is like, I feel like this is how I feel is like every team going into the series knows who's better at dive. And I feel like the team that's better at dive should just always draft on loser picks towards the dive maps and then figure out a way to win like whatever else, And it works at every level, Like even in EU, if like you're a slightly better dive team, I think just take to 1 or 2 dive maps because you have pretty good options, right? Like you have like you get the opportunity to play Escort twice. You get like, I think both like, what is it? Like Numbani and Blizzard World are in the pool. So you have like pretty good options for hybrid too. And then, yeah, but I think if I'm T1, I'd probably do that too, right? Like I'm always just drafting like lose, dive, and then hope to cheese my way to victory somewhere.
Yeah, I just think in those Falcons Crazy Raccoon scrims, Falcons must have probably been better on dive than they were in the match on that Gibraltar. Which it's always been 50-50 between those 2 teams on dive. But I think if you're obviously the better dive team, you should draft dive maps.
I think that dive map was also actually closer in that series than it like led to believe, right? Because Crazy Raccoon were almost full held as well. Then they clutch out at the end of first, they clutch out at the end of the second. And then it's like, oh, we full capped, everything's fine. But it really could have been very different in a couple of moments there. So I think it was like closer than it maybe appeared too. All right. Then should we move on and talk about some of the qualifying teams? Because we had OWCS qualifiers and the Swiss in this last weekend in both EMEA and North America. Of course, Chrissy, he won the Swiss. He won the first 2 days of Swiss. And then he went on and he qualified directly as well. I mean, we can talk about all the teams that qualified as well, but I think overall, big picture, covered the whole thing on my stream. It was actually, I only did EMEA, but it was a great time. Absolutely great time. Games were super entertaining. The format I actually felt was really good as well. Like we only had 2 days of Swiss. Then we went into a double elimination bracket afterwards. And then that double elim bracket, it was sort of broken up a little bit weird. So you had to win 2 games in your sort of mini bracket in the upper bracket. If you did that, you qualified. And then all the teams that lost got thrown into like a 12-team fucking gauntlet for 1 final spot, which made that final day actually incredibly viewing, incredibly high stakes. So I think we're only going to do it once this year, but the format was really good. The games were super entertaining. Really couldn't have asked for much more. So I think like in terms of a one-off qualifier, I think big success.
I think you could instantly tell that the hero bans and the format and loser picks like really made for close series. I feel like every series was really close, and it got a lot of upsets too. Like those Vision esports matches, they could have gone either way
they were
twice.
insane.
And I feel like a lot of that is because of hero bans and because of map picks.
They have a unique comp, right? Like Vision because Vision is the team with Simple on it, so they have these comps where they can just like, we're going to put Simple and Zen on these greedier backline comps and just cause these problems for the other teams who are just trying to mainly play Hazard in most places, you know. And it meant there was a classic sort of back and forth of, all right, I get to pick the map. We're going to this type of comp. Now you lose the map. Now you go to this, and like eventually someone's server's broken, or it just comes down to a dogfight where it's like, okay, now you have to just win the Hazard mirror on map 5 or something.
Yeah, I think like obviously there was like people, like a lot of people talking about, I'm surprised X dropped maps to whoever. But I think that's actually just par for the course now. I think that like this format is about as big an advantage that the loser could get that you could almost give. Like it's like I think the number of free O's, even if it's like big dogs versus small dogs, there will be dropped maps. Like I think this was even true like EWC, right? Like we were taking maps, like always trading maps with Korean teams, and it Stockholm and Dallas there was no trading. You know, it was just victory. So I think that's maybe something that people will learn to accept, that actually in this format, like a 3-1 win isn't like, it's not that bad compared to maybe another, they dropped a map, this means blah, 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 blah. It's really easy in this format, I think, to drop a map.
I feel like now you used to be really dominant for a Frio. Sorry, Max, go ahead.
No, I mean, you had the exact same thing in North America in terms of the format, making it like significantly more competitive. A team that was just like one-tricking Hazard versus a team that was one-tricking something unique, you know, playing Naga, Sombra, stuff like that. And that the team that was playing Naga and Sombra, they actually played very well around the loser pick and the bans, and they qualified through, like as a result of the fact that they were able to actually use the system properly, whereas basically every other team that was playing in Face It, I mean, I'm stealing Capitology's flow here, you know, full credit to him, but every other team that played through the tournament in North America, yeah, big ups to T. It's like hero bans didn't matter at all in NA. There was a lot of handshaking, there was a lot of Hazard, there was a lot of bans that didn't really mean anything, but then the one team that actually managed to qualify all the way through and cause a big upset, I want to say it's called Amplify. They actually took like full advantage of the bans format, played something different, made it work with the bans, and got in. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely adds another layer of depth to how people can compete.
In terms of the specifics, I think EMEA, we got the two teams, the Ultimates and OWCS. I think I'm saying it right. I'm probably not saying it right. Someone will correct me again in this video. But they both got through, so that was sort of no surprises there. Team Peps got through, which I think is what most people expected, even though they had to reverse sweep Deimpero in that final game to qualify. So a classic French derby that went all the way. But Peps pulled it off. And then Sakura may be the surprising one. Sakura is the Hitori team, Zorro and stuff like that. And they end up beating Incendia. This actually was a 3-0, I think, because very much so Incendia also just wanted to play the Hazard comp, so a bit of taking the mirror here. But Hitori was just dominant on that hero. Actually one of the best looking Hazards in the region right now, I think. So actually very excited to see Sakura go into that top 8. I think they're not going to be like a pushover even against some of these like bigger rosters.
In general, I think EU looks really competitive. I was surprised you almost lost to Team Peps, Chris. What happened there? They look dominant.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for us was the Swiss specifically is like we'd practiced the whole week on hero bans, right? So every scrim we'd like ran the simulation. So we'd probably recognize from our scrims that what we didn't want to do was just like play like the full mirror. It was like it felt like that was the best chance for us to lose, was just the full Hazard mirror. But obviously what the Swiss did with no hero bans meant was that if you did play against a team, then they would you couldn't stop them playing it. So I think for us, like we would have felt against any team we had a much better chance in the hero bans format than the Swiss format.
Well, the same thing happened to Vision, right? Who didn't finish very highly in terms of the Swiss. Like they got top 16, but they were towards like the mid/bottom end of it. Yet they're the team that end up coming through in this sort of 12-team gauntlet at the bottom. So I feel like they're a team that benefited massively from the format as well, and also actually made use of it as well in terms of their bans.
Yeah, I mean, Vision were really good for it too, because it was like they were doing what we were talking about earlier, right? Like every time they would lose the map one, they would go to like Blizzard World and pick Zen, and then all of a sudden, like they forced a matchup on their own terms, on a map on their own terms, you know. And what that ended up meaning a lot of the time for Vision Esports was they only had to find a way to dogfight one hazard mirror, you know. If God willed it, then they could just win one of the fucking random, unbelievable clutch dogfights. I mean, if God allowed them to win, that's what I meant, you know. And then they get like 2 or 3 2 banker maps where they just play their fucking random like Ana Zen shit, and then they kind of win all the series, you know.
Yeah, it was kind of a pattern because they had 2 3-2s. Both of which where they just win the maps you sort of expect. They just win Blizzard World every time. They win a Dorado or they win an Esperanza. And then they get the rematch on KOF and they just dogfight their way through. They just clutch it out in the final one, you know? I mean, it's kind of, the exact sort of template you were talking about on how to get through some of these teams. Is it, I guess, maybe the biggest miss? Obviously, Oblivion didn't qualify, but I feel like they were probably always like an outside shot in all of this. Deimpero didn't qualify, an outside shot. Maybe Incendio, this was Hybrid's team. That's the big one. That feels like they missed their opportunity here. Like I was sort of expecting them to be the 8th team.
Yeah, this format was always going to do this, though, I think. Like if you couldn't qualify in like that top 4, the people who got through, like there was always going to be like you have to play like 3 or 4 games. It's like super high pressure, like super high stakes. It's really easy to I was thinking like if we lost the Cloudy team, I would have really not liked to play in this tournament. Like even though in theory we should be fine, it's just like the format itself like is just that's so ugly. It's fun. It's a good format. It's fun to watch. It's the right way to do it. But to participate in said arena.
Stressful.
Coliseum, you know,
It's like, so. I mean, it's so scary.
It's shit for the gladiators, but it's quite good for the rest of us watching it.
Yeah, if you don't make it in, you have nothing to do for the next, 6-7 weeks, 4 months, maybe.
Yeah, well, you also have to battle your way through Face It League to get yourself back into it as well, and then you have to play a promotion relegation game to get back in as well. So it ends up being this whole sort of like. You essentially have to do well you have to be consistent to come top of a league, and then you have to win that super high pressure match again. So it's like in theory it should also mean we keep like the good teams in the top 8, but it also means like it's a hard road back, you know. You have to like really fight for it. And also on the flip side of that, I think actually for teams like Peps and Sakura, it's easier to stay in the top 8 than it is get relegated, you know, because you only have to win that sort of one. You have to win that double a limb in the promotion relegation. So I think for Sakura and Peps especially, this is like massive in terms of winning this qualifier and getting the first qualification. Should we talk a little bit about some of the specifics of the Vision Esports, maybe the Vision Esports Deimpero series as well? Because we were watching it on the co-stream. Hattie and Chris were with me, and it was an absolute dogfight. But it was a dogfight in the server, but it was also a dogfight in text chat. It's fair to say, if you've not seen Deimpero play before, they like to type, mainly in French. They don't care. That may be a few translations issues for the Vision Esports, you know, the Saudi Arabian and Korean mixed team. Maybe not getting all of the French. So it was a lot of Deimpero typing to begin with, a lot of flame going their way. And I figured at a certain point, either one, nobody understands what they're saying, they're just being ignored, or all the players on Vision have just turned off match chat. And then Vision Esports win a map. And who is typing back? Taejong is typing back. He's giving it back. He's teabagging people. And at that point, I realize this is now, there's mental warfare as well. It is all in right now. This is an absolute nail biter. Everything on the line. Everyone is playing at like the emotional investment from both teams. Unprecedented.
One thing, like this is like advanced gamer tech, is if you're in a shit talk match, what you do is you just mute chat, but you keep typing, because that like allows you to play the best of both worlds, you know? The fact that they type back doesn't mean that it wasn't muted. It just means like that's what a lot of London players would do, is they would just like they would mute it so they couldn't see a single thing that was typed by anyone, but then they would type themselves on the off chance that the other team didn't have it muted, you know? And then that's how you inflict damage, but you can't take any. So that's like
it's just coward's advice.
But I mean, if you're trying to win,
me chat guys, and fucking pussy.
Wow, I mean, that's why I was in play-ins, mate. And
can't clap back to someone if you got them muted, mate. Like, yeah, just victim mentality off spawn, you know? You're just assuming that your players are so fragile that, you know, anything that gets said by the enemy team, like they can't shrug it off, you know? You got Kevstar, match chat unmuted, standing still on a map 5 to type to London and basically losing the fight as a result, still wins the series, you know? And you guys got pre-muted, get real. Just victim mentality off rip.
Well, that's why I was in play-ins, mate, and you and your
you're gonna cling to your play-ins forever, mate. Let's look at every other season's results.
All right, who knocked you out of playoffs the year before, mate? You remember that one?
Fuck those guys.
Fuck those guys.
How many tournaments you win? How many tournaments you win, Chrissy? How many tournament wins?
That sucks that the last 2 years you got knocked out by the victim.
How many tournament wins, Christopher?
Wow, 0.
That reminds me of when we were playing against Glads in Hawaii, and we won a map, and I think we banged on the wall, and then they would win a map, and they would bang on the wall, and the admins would come and keep getting stuff.
Why did we mute the wall? Why did we mute the wall? Is what I want to know, because I wanted to follow Chris theory and mute the wall.
Well, actually, you should have used London theory for that LAN, which is don't qualify for the LAN at all, and then no one can bang on your wall.
True.
That's like it's essentially muting the wall in that method.
Yeah. The wall can't hit you if you're not there, mate.
So there was also some drama in the mix of this, as well as the drama of just the players popping off at each other and the maps going back and forth. And there was also an issue because, as we've talked about, there was hero bans throughout. But there was a little bit of drama on Blizzard World on that final, or on the end of Vision Esports attack. It was obviously a desperate recontest, and I think it was Slow Dive swaps to Tracer for a second for the recontest. Maybe he blinks, can't see from the angle we had, or if like POV we were on, but he swaps to Tracer, realizes, oh yeah, Tracer's banned, can't do that, swaps back, and then Vision Esports from that point, the round's over like half a second after that, so it didn't influence the fight, didn't get close to touching, didn't trade any kills or anything like this. But this led to an issue where Deimpero then reports to the FACEIT that, hey, these guys used one of the banned heroes, blah, 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 because Vision Esports would go on to win that map because they didn't report until afterwards. So Vision Esports win the map, then Deimpero drop the report, and then the admins have to investigate. So the conclusion of this is the admins came back and said essentially that it didn't influence the game, didn't influence this, so therefore the result will stand, and the series carried on, and they went on to win 3-1 Vision Esports here. But we should maybe talk about the issue of, like, I guess the merits of the decision and the merits of the system in terms of how we ended up in this situation.
Yeah, so I guess in the specifics, it's like, okay, so people need to realize this. If you've been a pro player for years and you've never had hero bans, muscle memory to swap to like Lucio, like people would swap to Diva if you're a tank, or like Kiri or Tracer. Like this is just, everyone does it instinctively, you know? And people are really still not used to playing with this. And the fact that you go to spawn and then swap, I think the admins clearly made the right decision not to do anything. I don't know what happened, but if Deimpero would have took the win, if they would have actually like happily claimed the win for that, then that's real cowardice shit, you know? If it impacted the game, no problem. It's a DQ. That's the rules. But if someone accidentally picks it and then swaps it, and you are actually waiting in admin chat to see if you can claim the free W, I don't fuck with that, you know?
Yeah, I feel like it didn't impact the game. He wasn't in any fights at all. You could have swapped to a different character that had a dash ability, and he would have made it out of spawn just as quick. I feel like the problem is Bobby the intern on FACEIT League needs to make sure that FACEIT League on the site you can ban, just like you do with maps, and then it just disables the character in the game. That can't be that difficult.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but
it can't be that difficult.
Because it's not. I think the important thing to remember here is there is not a guy or girl in the lobby running the server.
Yeah.
It's all automated. Because especially for Swiss, when there's a billion games happening at the same time, and even here, I think there was at least 4 games happening at the same time until we got later, sometimes even more, that actually it's all automated. So they need to build it into the automation. So I think that's the obvious solution, right? Build it into the automation.
That's what I just suggested.
But that's not just as straightforward, if you know what I mean, because the FACEIT integration is unique, as in like it's custom made with Blizzard. due to the partnership with Faceit. So it's not, there's like, I don't know exactly how it works, of course, but there's like extra steps, if you know what I mean, to get it functioning.
Right, but if they can integrate map bans and map picks, I feel like they should be able to integrate.
But
here,
I
it's just the same.
I feel like
I agree it is possible, but there's like a gap. It's not just as simple as turn it on, right? And I think that's what I saw a lot on Reddit and Twitter was just like, why don't they just turn it on? The options in the game. And this is sort of misunderstanding of how it actually works, which is like maybe the bigger problem.
Because the Faceit lobby isn't just like a workshop code. It's like it's actually something really specific. And I think when Faceit like got into partnership with Blizzard like a year and a half ago, I think that was one of the first things the dev did. And since that lobby system has basically stayed the same. Like there hasn't been like tweaks on it. My feeling is it's actually like it's probably requires quite a difficult thing because it's not just tweaking code. You need Blizzard to do it, and then like there's like this whole back and forth. So I think the reason the Swiss didn't have hero bans was because there wasn't enough admin people, there wasn't enough admins to run 16 lobbies and do hero bans for it at the same time. You know, my feeling is because regular season it's just going to be one game at a time. I don't think we will use the Faceit system at all for it, and I think it's just going to be like.
It'll be a non-issue from
yeah, you'll just exactly what we do on LAN, right? You just type it and the admin does it. Like maybe the argument is like they should have just done that for the qualifiers because you only needed maybe like 4 admins to run it, so maybe just hire someone for it. But my feeling, I'm not a coder, but my feeling is like actually like the automation part. I think it's actually way more difficult than people think because it's not just Danny changing it like on the workshop code or something, you know. Like it's like a whole thing.
Because you think even in the workshop code, you change the bans manually each map anyway, right? Like the code can't do it. You have to just manually turn the heroes on and off, you know? So I think, yeah, it is possible, and I'm sure it'll be introduced as well. But it's like, I think that it's just when I saw people commenting on like Reddit and Twitter saying like, oh, just turn it on. There's just like a misunderstanding of like how the system actually works. Because otherwise they'd need it to be like so much harder to run these Swiss tournaments when it's just like 100 teams or whatever, you know, and loads of match down happening at the same time.
Yeah, but I feel like now it's like now they've seen that it can mess things up, and players have muscle memory. You know, they swap the characters all the time, and they might even like. I could have seen that they just swapped a Tracer on a final fight and they just forget about the bans because they've been playing like that for 3 years, and then they would have lost a map because of it. So I feel like it's pretty key that the characters are banned, and I think for maybe next time or for Faceit League, they should be able to code it in.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality of it as well is this is not going to be an issue until January next year when we do the next open qualifier as well. So I think like any sort of concern towards the regular season is like null and void. It won't be a problem type thing, you know. We won't be having these situations in those matches.
But I think if they can script it in, it should also be in like the top of Faceit League. You know, I feel like if you're gonna qualify to the tournament or the OWCS, I feel like you should be able to qualify on hero bans like they had in this tournament. Not just on like normal gameplay, and then you play OWCS on hero bans. I think the earlier you put it in the system, the more people get used to it, the better it is.
I think while they're at it, if they're going to go hard coding the hero band stuff into their custom thing with Blizzard, they could look at, maybe after 15 years of the game being out, having alt charge preservation when you DC from the server. Because I really don't understand how that isn't still in the game after a trillion years. Like you DC from a ranked game or a custom game and you come back in with 0% alt charge with your hero deselected. Like it's just the single easiest change. Well, I don't know how like technically demanding it is, but it's got to be one of the most requested changes in the game since forever. It's in Marvel Rivals for ranked. It's in every serious game for ranked.
It's in the pro. It's in the pro for the Overwatch League client.
It's in the OPR, right?
Yeah.
It's in the OPR, but it's not like a custom game setting that you can toggle on, and like it impacts things all the time. Like that team that qualified through the Faceit open bracket and had the big upset win in North America, like. They probably would have lost 4 if there wasn't a DC on a Junker coin that had 60% alt charge and lost all of it. Like, really, really insane that after so many years, that is still not in the game. It's just ridiculous. But, beggars and choosers.
And then on the other side of the pond, North America, I feel like for the most part, the teams, with the exception of Amplify, which maybe nobody in their right mind saw coming as one of the teams to qualify out of here, a lot of the other teams are the teams we'd expect to go through. The Timeless team, Avidity, Rad Esports, Nightmare, of course, all make it through. And these are probably slightly new look rosters compared to last year, but a lot of the similar faces, right? I think all of these teams are the ones we'd expect to qualify. And then maybe even Shikigami, probably consistent, like got into top 8, I think 2 or 3 times last year, maybe. Also seems quite reasonable. It's just really that Supernova team, which was the old fluffy Dreamland. So like Astro, Chime, Ryan, they were the big team that missed out, really.
Was a
yeah,
insane match, like super major upset.
Because this was the one with the
least.
timeout as well, right? Where Astro lost his ult.
Yeah, this is where Astro lost. I don't know if they lost the map where Astro lost his ult, but they did lose the map where Astro lost 60% of his ult. So that was like an actual last fight banger where, you know, like he definitely would have had like a significant difference in the outcome of the series if he had that. Unreal.
Because I'm looking at this Amplified team now as well. And obviously I'm not as familiar with North American and EMEA. But I actually don't recognize anyone, I'm sorry to say. That's
the beauty of the Swiss.
The beauty of the Swiss. So hopefully they can keep it going. I mean, it's kind of what you want in many ways, right? Like anyone, this is the point of the system. Anyone has a chance to qualify, open qualifier. If you win the games, you get to play. They won the games.
Yeah.
I love open qualifier, especially when I don't have to play in it. Fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's the best part of it, actually. the absence
Must
of
be
competing
nice,
in it,
guys.
awesome.
Some of us have to earn our paycheck, you know?
And then was there too much more, anything from the qualifiers that anyone wants to talk about? We've kind of got our top 8 settled now. That all kicks off on the 31st.
Not massively.
All right. Then one of the other big pieces of news that have come out, I mean, it sort of came out a bit last week as well, but it sort of came to the forefront of conversation again as 99 Divine posted a statement on it. And this is about the Pacific region kind of getting shafted. I say kind of getting shafted. Very much getting shafted. They've got the shaft from Blizzard in terms of coverage and production. And for those who don't know, this is essentially that there's going to be no broadcast for Pacific, I think, until playoff stage, or past playoff when they enter the Asia LAN part of it, which means the Pacific region is still going to happen. There will still be a Pacific OWCS. But if a Pacific region plays a round of Overwatch, but there's no one there to see it, did it even happen?
I think at the end of the day, like, this is something that it sucks and it's sad, but it's sort of just a reflection on the fact that, you know, there's no money to be had in the region. There's low viewership. Like, you know, there's like a huge population in the Pacific region, but there's not that much viewership for these tournaments. You know, there have been English broadcasts of Pacific games before where basically nobody is watching. Obviously, this makes it more difficult to have an esports organization in PAC now, because how do you sell a product that doesn't get streamed or that only gets co-streamed, like, you know, by you and I, Xavier, as, you know, we'll be, you know, the informal co-streamers for some of these games maybe. But at the end of the day, like, it's a region where there's no money to be made because nobody's watching. And if people are watching, there's just not enough money in it to make it justifiable.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of esports are now adopting this format where if there's not enough viewership or there's not the money to pay the casters, they just get co-streamers. And League of Legends do the same thing with the entire China region, and I think
LPL,
that's a lot bigger than, you know, Overwatch CS Pacific is. Sorry, Overwatch CS Pacific. I don't think we're quite there, but you know, I think if they can assign set co-streamers, it's probably the best way to go. Of course, you'd want like a broadcasting stream, but even the English Korea like stream last year wasn't really watched, and that's like way bigger than Pacific too. So the Pacific like viewer numbers must just be really bad, and they must have a statistic where it's like, if we just do co-streamer, we save X amount of money. You know, hopefully they can do their best to to have set co-streamers and do it the same ones every week. Because I don't know if you guys will be doing Pacific, but if you guys had a choice to do Pacific or Korea, I think you're probably doing Korea.
I don't know where you get that idea from. Got nothing but love for the Pacific region. I would actually much rather watch Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck scrap it out than watch Falcons versus Crazy Raccoon on any given weekend.
But I think that will be the norm going forward for China, Korea, Pacific, for everybody. Just hand it off to co-streamers, save our money, and go from there. And you can maybe still pull viewership just from those numbers. I know Blizzard pulls those numbers into account, but it's probably a lot harder to sell to investors.
I think it's definitely sad. Like, I feel bad for people. I feel bad for are the players, because they're just kind of stuck in this situation, right? They can't do anything. But I think all the moves we've seen, especially from the Asia side of it, in terms of the removal of the English broadcast for most of it, I think they're only going to be they're only going to be streaming playoff matches and LAN matches in Korea. So they've cut the broadcast down from 3 days a week plus Pacific plus Japan, so like 7 days a week essentially, from 7 days a week to 5 days a stage. And they've also partnered with Soup to make it exclusive for the Korean language broadcast on there. And all of these moves, I mean, it's a business, guys, there's no surprise, seem to be financially motivated. Try and save money on the broadcast, try and get an exclusive partnership to get more money through the door. So it clearly seems all these decisions are being made for the same reasons, in terms of trying to get the most out of their budget or try and increase that budget as well. So I do feel really sad for Pacific players. And I do agree with the sentiment of, shouldn't our games be watched? Shouldn't they be, on screen so everyone can enjoy and follow the storylines? But the problem is, ultimately, I think everyone agrees with the sentiment, but not enough to actually tune in.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the big difference. Because if it was getting 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 viewers, this decision doesn't happen. But ultimately, same as any sport, people want to watch the biggest, the strongest regions, right? I think it's no surprise that maybe League have made the similar decision, right? In terms of which regions still get the broadcast because they do the numbers. Is it because they still do the, I forget what it's called, but League of Legends NA in EU, right?
Mm-hmm.
But why do those ones still get a broadcast, even though I presume plenty of those Chinese teams are as good, if not better, right? It's all about sort of viewership and what it actually returns. So I think it's sad, but also not surprising.
It's really difficult to tell a business to do something that's going to actively lose them money, and just because it's like.
But right, we should bring back Overwatch League. I can say that with a straight face. I can tell every business to do that. That was sick. Yeah. We should bring back Overwatch League. I don't care if you lose money. Just bring it back. Personal interest.
When you get those examples where maybe your nan or your aunt or something will be like, "Oh, I can't believe that sandwich shop closed down. I love that sandwich shop." It's like, when's the last time you went there? Oh, like 2 years ago. And it's like, this is why they've closed down. You love it, right? You love it, but not enough to actually go to it, And I think this is the same with Pacific. Everyone says, yeah, they do deserve it, right?
It's like nobody watches it, so
watch it. Yeah, if you don't watch it, it's like unfortunately that's the business model, right? So if there's not the numbers, it's not pulling it in. So yeah.
I mean,
tied into this though, of course. I'll go on.
They've gone downhill so much this stage because they also don't get their LAN in Korea anymore that they could lose to Korean teams. Now they have to lose online to Korean teams, which I mean that's gone downhill. And then also this. And then only broadcasting the playoffs. I feel for them a lot is being taken away. So I think we can all, echo the sentiment that it sucks for the players and the teams and the orgs. But if I were in Blizzard's shoes, I would also prioritize the broadcasts that are getting, viewership because there's not that much to go around apparently.
Yeah, ultimately go. I was going to say, we talk about wanting the game to be healthy, wanting the game to be sustainable. And ultimately, there is like a sense of realism here in terms of how big is our game for how many regions we can support, right? Like, it's nice to look at CS and Valorant and go, oh, they've got a strong scene in South America. They've got Australian teams. They've got all of this. Our game is smaller. You look at other games, our size, Halo type stuff. Is COD they're incredibly American-based with a couple of European teams, right? They're not even as widespread as Overwatch is region-wise, you know? So I think it's like, this is just the current state of play.
Yeah. I mean, like, we're working in an industry that is like already on complete live support, and then Overwatch in particular is something that is like really, relatively small nowadays. I mean, I just looked at the Overwatch category on Twitch right now. There's 3.3 thousand viewers for Overwatch right now. Of the top 5 people on the Overwatch category right now, I've been on a team with 3 of them in the past year. And the second most viewed Overwatch streamer right now is 151 viewers. Like, it's a very small scene now, so I don't think the money is there for Pacific anymore. I'm going to keep it $8. Like, it's
Could you give that buck to Pacific instead? They need it more than you, mate. Don't keep it for yourself.
Oh god. Yeah, everyone needs a buck right now, I think. It must be nice.
Well,
from giving it to the minor regions, I do think we have Japan now, right? Which
major regions, mate, if you believe what you hear in the news.
Yeah, apparently. So the Crazy Raccoon and the Zeta Cups and everything they're holding over there, that's good stuff. But I think there's also a big player base there, and I don't think there's as big of a player base in Pacific in general.
Well, you said you needed a buck, Max. So the good news is there's a great way for you and me to make a buck. Because as much as the English broadcast might have died, in their stead comes the official partnered co-streamers, which will be you, me, and Avril. So we will be providing the action for Big Three. We'll be providing the action with drops enabled to sort of, I guess, lead the forefront of this co-streamer age we're moving into.
Yeah, I mean, I think they need to incentivize people to watch the games so that then people will co-stream them. The co-streamer model only works if you've got enough people that regularly co-stream the games and enough people that actually watch those co-streamers to keep things, interesting. If I do wonder, with this current model, are we still going to see a large portion of games that don't receive coverage? Or do you reckon Big Kev is just going to tank it and just watch every single pack and every single JP game?
I mean, those are the big ones in question, right? Because I'll say it right now, 100% Korea will be okay. Korea will survive.
Just fine.
I think me and Max are probably going to do, I'll do all of Korea, and I think Max will still be there for as many as he can. The majority probably still.
Depends on, whether the cows are drinking on the particular day or not. But yeah, try to be there for most.
Well, you guys should just test the waters too, right? Like, if you stream those other regions, are you still getting good viewership? Do people actually want to watch it? Look at the numbers, and obviously you're going to get good numbers.
Less do people want to watch it, and more do people want to AFK in your stream for drops. But
there you go. I mean, they always want to do that. They always love doing that.
But there's always just like an hours in the day thing as well, right? Because if we do the math, 7 days in a week, and then I'll do Korea on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I do Pacific on Thursday, and then on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday I do Japan. It's a lot. It's a lot. If I want to do anything else, if I want to maybe see my fiance once or twice a week, maybe, or if I want to even do other stuff within the Overwatch scene as well, in terms of like my YouTube channel or this a podcast or two, let's say, suddenly that schedule looks really, really packed. And again, in many ways, I'm leaning actually the same way of Blizzard, as if I'm picking a region to cut. It's not going to be Korea. It's not going to be North America. It's not going to be EMEA. It's Japan and Pacific become bottom of that barrel, essentially, unfortunately, for really all the same reasons Blizzard have picked, because it'll be the lower viewership. So, I mean, I know Avril did it all last year, so hopefully he does the same again to provide that. But
God, if Avril does every single game in Japan and Pacific, that guy's...
He did last year. He just didn't do.
He didn't do
NA.
I'm glad he got picked.
He didn't do NAU.
You guys, I don't care too much about, but I'm glad Avril got picked. Great.
So I don't particularly care for you either, Cass.
Fuck you all.
That shit-eating grin, dude. He's so happy.
Got my shot in.
It's all right, mate. SSG will get your revenge, Max.
Do you guys like my Team Liquid plushie? I think he's very cute.
I do. What is it? A horse? A unicorn?
If I figure it out, I'll let you know.
It's a horse, surely. Surely it's a horse. Look at the mane.
It's a mohawk.
There you go. Could be a tiger too, a mohawk. Nah, it's always.
Then I think not too much more to cover. One of the things that came up was, I guess, something that came out in the rule book. Somebody actually read the rules. Good on you. Posted it to.
It wasn't EXO.
That basically said in the rules, it was a very vaguely worded rule, to keep everyone guessing. But it was basically that performance at stage 1 may affect the number of regional land spots in future events. So something to akin of, if your region wins in stage 1, they might get more spots for stage 2 and so on type of thing. So I thought this was like an interesting thing. I know they've maybe sort of like these things have been discussed before in the past. But it seems reasonable enough, right, to have a certain number of spots guaranteed for each region and then a certain amount up for grabs based on regional performance. And in theory, all the sort of belly aching about Korea being hard done by, this should solve it on the basis that they're probably going to win.
Yeah, if I had to guess, my assumption would be that this is just like an EWC thing, like I would guess that last year was the same, right? The first and the Stockholm and Dallas were effectively the same tournament, and then EWC has its own number of teams and qualifications. That's what I suspect this means. I think I'd be surprised if maybe it's possible. The Stockholm this year, I think it'll probably just be 8 teams, probably 2 from each region. But EWC, how many went last year? Was it 16? Was it even more? It was 16, right?
16, yeah.
I suspect we'll get more than 8 for EWC.
Yeah. No, time for us to shit the bed again, so NA only gets a couple spots and EU gets 5.
Come on, mate. Max really needs that.
No,
fight.
That'd be a throwback, actually. It's been a long time since I last denied my region a slot. In 2019, we went to the Pacific Championship and came last, and as a result, we didn't get a spot at the Gauntlet, which was fucking cool. But we would have come last at that too, but it would have been sick for a free holiday in 2019. So yeah, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine these ones won't be so brutal. I imagine any region that comes last at the China LAN won't be having their region excluded from the Esports World Cup. I think this will only be an extension of spots rather than anyone getting blocked from that. So I think that's everything. Anything else telling on anyone's mind that we should talk about when it happened this week? Covered all the qualifiers. We've got our top 8 teams in both regions, and that will be kicking off on 31st. Korea on the 24th. OWCS is back. Everything's starting again. Everyone's scrimming. A few teams are even boot camping. So it's all really kicking off again. So then we can start the quiz.
Oh, what a wonderful time of the episode. All right, so again, outsource the quiz. Right, today what we're gonna do is we've spoken a lot about age in Overwatch and maybe some of the older players. I want to see, do we know I think it's nine oldest players that are competing in OWCS next year? To fit in with the theme, I'm also excluding Pac for the same reason everybody else is. So it's EU, NA, and Korea. 9 players who are the oldest across all the teams. And all of them, there's maybe one which is a little bit obscure, but most of them are you'll know who they are, All right, Cass, the guest, you can go first.
All right, let's do Twilight.
Yeah, okay, so Twilight is 3rd place, 26 years old now.
Oh, okay. Shoot.
And not on the list.
Really?
Yeah, no, he did make the top 9.
Wow.
Is it Bernard?
No, not on the list.
Oh, I thought he would be. Dang. This is
So
tough.
there's one who's one that's quite comfortably above the rest, which when you realize it, you think, oh, yeah. And then the rest are quite close. It's at the 24, 25 age range. That's where a lot of them go in.
Is it Violet?
Yeah, so Violet is on there. He's also
24.
Yeah, soon.
Soon is the oldest player. So he's 30 years old. He was probably the inspiration for the quiz. Yeah.
Were you saying those other players who they were 24 the first team?
Yeah, there's actually 5 players who are 24 who are on the bottom of the list, and then you've got 4 players who are older than 24, but you've already got 2 of them.
Hanbin?
Nope, not on the list. You're still a little bit too new gen, I think. You need to go for
Still
players
going-
that like
yeah, I'm
played
kind of
like
thinking- I'm
season
thinking, like,
2, season
tenure.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cass.
Is it Kai?
Yeah, so Kai's just squeezed in at the bottom. Yeah, but he's the youngest old guy on the list.
Yeah, I think it might be Kev, but Kev and Kai, they both came when they were like old. But yeah, I think Kai might be older than him.
No, Kev not on the list. Is Casores 3-0-0 up right now?
Yeah, he's dominating.
No, 3-1-0. You go soon. Okay, yeah. Not Kev.
I feel like it's almost no one in North America, right?
Yeah, no one in
NA
North
is fucked.
America. It's only Korea and EU.
Yeah.
I don't know really. It's like Vestler or something.
Yes, good shout. Best
Yeah.
made the list. Yeah, also 24. So how many we got? We got 1, 2, 3, 4 to go. 2 Korean, 2 Europeans.
When you say Europeans, are they actually Europeans or are they in EU?
Well, they're from EMEA
Okay.
and they play in EMEA.
Yeah, but they're from EMEA, right?
They are from passports legally
Yeah,
paid.
yeah. Okay.
Badged out of the running then.
Yes, out of the running. Although,
And they
It's
are playing
close.
in they're playing in EMEA,
yes,
right? There's no-
right now, mate, they're there.
Okay. Oh.
Is it not Cass's go? Did you guess, Cass?
It's Cass's turn.
Oh, it's my turn. What the hell?
Yeah.
It's because the on my screen
out loud,
Hunter
sorry.
is like in front of me. Is it Funny Astro?
Yes, Funny Astro
Ooh.
is, yeah. So now, yeah, these ones are going to start to get a little bit tough, maybe. 2 Koreans,
Tough.
one who's 27, who's the second oldest player in OWCS.
Is
You've got
Is it Kalios? Is he still in?
He's
No,
he's in Japan, right? Isn't he? With
Nah,
Edison.
well, he didn't. Yeah,
Steady
didn't
Eddie
make
and
this.
Cali are
Yeah,
doing it big in
They would-
Japan.
they would probably be on the list, but unfortunately, they played for not one of the big
Nick
3
region.
regions.
Yeah, Nick region.
I go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wait, Fielder maybe. I think he was season 2.
No,
Season 3
not
maybe.
Fielder. No. All right, so we'll just do it so anyone can jump in now. Okay, so I have 1 World Cup winner, 1 2 times Overwatch League winner.
How about Lip?
Is it?
Nope.
No, Lip.
Is it
Can't be
Haku?
Haku is 25 years
Yeah.
old, so he gets in there.
That was impossible. Like,
Yeah, that was a really tough
yeah.
one. You were never going to get it. Okay, so now I have someone who won the Overwatch League 2 times. I think 2 times. And I have.
Who are you?
It's not who are you.
Oh,
He's young, mate.
is he still young though? Because he's been young for ages, which eventually means you're not young anymore.
It's someone that has come back quite recently.
Is it Juby?
No, it's Korean.
They've
Came
come
out of
back
retirement
recently.
quite recently. Won the Overwatch League.
Didn't someone already guess Twilight?
It's not Twilight. But I mean, he's on the list, but it's not him.
Yeah. So someone already did guess it, right?
Yeah,
Like Cass got that.
yeah,
Yeah. And you've done Violet as well.
yeah. But it's you're really close. You're on the right wavelength.
And like Rascal's not on my roster.
No.
He's won more than twice
Pelican?
as well.
No, not
He's
Pelican.
never won. He's never won.
He loves chandeliers.
Architect. oh my
Architects!
Oh,
Oh.
God. Get out. He's on a roster
on-
right now. Is he on
Yeah.
the
he
roster?
is.
Yeah.
Which
So he
one
came
is
back
it?
this year.
Is it Poker Face or something?
Dude, he's like
Vesico.
Masters right now, bro. I swear. I was watching his stream and he came back for like more than a week and he was still in Masters. Like,
And then we have one more. There's one
what
obvious.
region?
So I think he's back in Korea
Korean
now.
still.
I think he spent some time across the last year dogfighting it out in EU, across multiple.
Izayaki.
No. Same role, same nationality.
skewed.
A Korean
Who else
flex
is
support in
there?
EU.
Yeah.
Because
He plays
it's not
for
Vici though, right? Because he's
no,
too young.
yeah.
What Iris? He's not
No.
on a roster, is he?
No.
'Cause
He-
Who the fuck else was there?
I don't know how. Like, there's one obvious clue, but then I might as well just tell you. But he played for TM, I think, at times last year. He played for
MCD.
MCD.
Of course,
there you go.
yeah.
MCD,
Of
the second oldest.
I
player,
forgot he
actually,
got
at
that.
What team is he
27
on
years
now?
old.
Competing.
What are they called? New Era?
New era.
Jesus. Yeah. Good laugh there.
There you go. No idea who won. Probably Cass.
Yeah, it's Cass.
I think
I got
Cass.
all the
definitely.
easy ones. I think going first makes it easy.
Yeah.
I stole all the easy ones.
All right.
I really thought Shu was getting on, but I guess he came in and maybe 2020.
Yeah, he might still be like
and
24, but just like one of the younger 24s, because I think there's actually like quite a lot of 24 year olds.
Yeah, there's heaps of.
yeah.
He's 24. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you said 24, I was like, 24 surely actually like opens up loads of players who could. be
Yeah, I think
24,
there is. I think there's like
Yeah.
there's only a few who are older than that.
Off topic, but I felt old last year. But this year, I'm gonna feel ancient with all the 17-year-olds I've got. Oh my God.
Yeah, true. Actually, you
I've
and
got-
We're gonna have to keep them in line.
I think I've got to have the youngest like roster in Overwatch history almost. Like that's in tier 1.
How old
In
is Knife?
Overwatch League, it was 18. Knife is 20.
Hmm.
So even that. RuPaul's the oldest at 22, but I've got two 17-year-olds, one 18-year-old, and then a 20-year-old, and then a 22-year-old. So the average age is like 19. I'm already feeling old. They have way too much energy. Like I don't know how they keep yapping so much.
You got to do what I do and just keep with the lingo. You got to keep on learn all the new words that come out. Keep them on their toes.
Yeah.
DLC
you
words, you're always on top of
sprinkle
that.
them in the
Yeah.
VOD views, and they're like, "Whoa,
I
whoa,
do.
whoa! Our coach is hip. He's hipster."
It's literally what happened. They're like, "What the fuck?" Yeah.
To be fair, there was actually it was the same back in London. There was unbelievable dopamine when Chris would use the Gen Z lingo in the VOD reviews. It sparks every like something hit the dopamine receptors in the players' heads, and then
And then they remember
paying
it.
attention. Yeah.
You're like the "How do you do, kids?" and you're trying to toss in the lingo.
Old man
Exactly.
skateboard. Yeah.
All right then. Quiz done. Client of the week. So I was struggling a bit for this
Yeah.
one. We had loads last week because we sort of had like a bit of a break over Christmas, so there was like a backlog to get through. Is it just going to be Deimpero for trying to rule book?
I feel like I want to give it to the. I feel like the VP video. I feel like that's like.
Ooh.
I really like that. Like the VP social team.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
got
think
Probably
Russian-
doing them every week. Is
Russian
there isn't enough
oligarchs.
client.
I'll give it to Elon Musk for doing the Hitler salute.
Yeah, that's actually good. Yeah, that seems really questionable.
It's a really out there choice, I think. Yeah. Does anything else really happen? I feel like
We
there's any
should
other
do-
drama.
This is why you shouldn't do 2 episodes a week. This is it. This is why we should keep going back to one every few months. That's,
I preferred that cadence.
yeah.
Is there anything else? I mean, the players kicked off on Twitter as well after that Deimpero and
There was a bit of a
that felt a bit clienty, but I feel like it all kind of ties in as one thing,
Weren't people just dogpiling on Crocs?
Yeah.
I
Oh,
saw
poor
one
Crocs,
Twitter
dude.
thread where he commented back, and there's just the whole,
Yeah.
like the entirety of Saudi Arabia just commented
Yeah.
to him.
I mean, that'll happen. Yeah, that'll happen.
Many
It
such
happen.
cases.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this year. That's going to be the French against the Saudi Arabian war, constantly. Two of the
Honestly,
worst
Saudi's
communities
taken
in
over
all of
this year, no?
Overwatch taken over.
How many orgs is it? 4 orgs in EMEA?
Four Saudi orgs in the top 8. Saudi's like finally on top.
There you go.
I vote VP.
Yeah, I vote VP as well. That shit was awesome.
I loved
I
watching
can cop it. I can cop
Alright.
it.
Congratulations, VP media team. Look at this guy. This guy deserves it. Whoever this guy, the mystery character is. He's the why Junkrat too? Like not even like just these two
Who's the
heroes that they
Junkrat
play.
player?
Like It would almost make sense, like if it was like, like Elari, Brig, I don't know, like
Sigma.
Ash, like all of that, but it's just fucking Junkrat. Like,
Okay, but it's so bad it's kind of
also-
funny actually. It's so bad it's kind
It's
of
not
funny.
a real place either. Like it's not. This isn't an Overwatch map.
is it not Kings Row?
Yeah, but this
Looks
isn't
like-
actually Kings Row. It's like Kings Row-esque, right?
Do you think? I feel like they could have AI done it, and I feel like if it's AI, the libs need to cancel them like they do. They cancel everyone. You know, they need to get them.
Oh, I
The
feel like it
Libs have
just
got
looks
their
like
eyes on a different
a.
prize right now.
It just looks like a
Fucking Elon.
preloaded Unreal Engine map where they've just gone with like the fabric made like map and fabric made characters, and they just had
Yeah.
these 5 characters that they could load in because they were for free on the template, you know. But I feel like they should
Yeah, I
have
think
just
it-
gone with a graphic, and that would have been better.
Yeah, honestly,
I don't-
that's it. You just
Yeah.
freeze frame it and then post this. This is miles better. Just this, you know. Than the video.
What if everyone got gamed? Like it's just obvious engagement farming, and you all took the bait.
I mean, then fair play. Actually, then fair play. They got me.
They knew like no one was going to give a fuck about this roster, so you know they've got to do something to actually get people engaging with the tweet, and they did it.
It worked.
So maybe we're the clients at the end of the day. We fell right into their trap.
We always were, mate. We always were.
Yeah.
Congratulations, then, to VP on one of a few things they'll win this year.
Yeah.
Might come back to bite you. I trust in Jwoo. Jwoo's making land.
Let's see.
Who's signing him?
But the VP signed him.
Oh,
Oh,
I mean, I guess in, yeah.
I'm a little slow.
yes.
I'm a little slow.
Someone's going to pick him up, yeah. But all right, then. In the books.
Booked.
Okay.